Alright, I guess this is our first time doing this, so let's go ahead and go around the table here. So everybody say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, iPad.
It's a Zoom. It's like first generation Zoom. No, it's not cheap. This thing, when it came out like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it cost me like a good amount. All right, so as I mentioned before, what we usually do here, for those of you guys that are watching online, or for everybody here that's your first time, our whole thing is just roundtable discussion. Like, it's not really one person presenting for an hour or 2 hours. I just find that boring, even when it's me presenting for an hour or 2 hours. So if you have something you want to share, I welcome you guys to share it. And what we'll do this time around is we'll just go around the table, and everybody that wants to speak and talk about something can. Again, like I said before, if you want to go up and actually present it, let me make sure that this thing, all right. You can present it and kind of go on from there. Let's real quick go around the table, since we do have a lot of new faces, and just kind of introduce everybody. Starting with you, go ahead.
Alright, so I'm Andy GH. At least that's how you'll see me post in Facebook, because my name is way too long. No, it's way too long. I'm a web developer at Meetup Group. Got a couple of my coworkers here. They'll present themselves individually. But happy to be here.
You guys all work in the same company, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Try to introduce yourself, brother.
So my name is Jaime Sandoval. I just started at Meetup Group about a month ago now. And I'm a little new to WordPress, but every day I've had to learn very fast, more and more as much as possible. So I'm here to gain as much experience as I can.
Okay, awesome. Go ahead, brother.
I'm Sean Hill. We all work together. We play with a lot of WordPress templates, customization, and whatnot. Not too many plugins.
Okay.
That's about it. Just kind of came here to learn a little bit more.
Awesome.
My name is Jim Walker, the hack repair guy. I fix hack websites, hackrepair.com, all that good stuff. I'm here to learn stuff. I mean, you guys are awesome. So I'm going to try to give a little presentation today, and I'm hoping you can give me some good feedback.
AJ Zane, I do web development and digital marketing for an agency up in Carlsbad called L7 Creative. Like everyone else, love learning more stuff from you guys, and hopefully I can share something new.
I'm Leon, I'm a WordPress developer and also a PHP developer. I mainly do freelance work, do a lot of websites, also started a few plugins.
I'm Liz Silverman, and I'm a website designer and developer. I've been working in WordPress about 2 years now, and just want to keep learning as much as I possibly can about it because I enjoy the platform.
Dustin Bradley, it's my first time here. I actually have an office here in Commerge. I have a company, we develop software. I buy and sell websites, web businesses. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Flippa.com. It's a marketplace for buying and selling websites. Anyway, I develop software that helps you, it's called flipmanager.com, and it helps you organize all your websites in one place. And so we're about to launch, and I would say with WordPress, I'm medium to advanced. I know a lot of plugins and a lot of places to go to find really cool tools and stuff, so maybe I can contribute.
I'm Matt Barrett. I'm a freelance web developer. I've been working with WordPress for about 2 or 3 years, and I've been doing the freelance thing for about a year now. Just starting to build my business and looking to contribute and learn.
I'm Devin Walker. I build plugins and themes, and I do quite a bit of freelance as well. And I've been working with WordPress for about 4.5 years now.
I'm Sach. I work at Aspen Marketing as an email marketer. I do freelance WordPress like maintenance. So I have done like WordPress sites as well, but I've kind of like stepped off the grid a little bit. But yeah, I'm here to contribute, and that's pretty much it.
Hi, I'm Kim Espinoza. I'm the owner of Espinoza WebWorks, which is basically a one-person web studio. And I've been working in WordPress for about 4 years. I really like it. I think it's a great platform, and I'm glad to be part of the group as well as the Facebook group, and welcome to all the new people here.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm one of the new people here, and I'm a programmer. I work for a small company that does desktop applications, believe it or not. They're not online. I'm looking to get online, so I'm here to learn all about WordPress.
Thanks. Ed, want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ed. I'm a photographer slash developer. I mostly make plugins for photographers.
Awesome, welcome. All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for introducing yourselves. Last month we had like 30-something people here. I know we get people coming in at like 6:30, 7 o'clock, so as people come in, we'll just go ahead and keep going. Let's go ahead and start from this side. Oh, my apologies. My name is Michael. You guys all know me from the Facebook group. If you're not a part of the Facebook group, I highly recommend that you join the Facebook group. Just go on Facebook and type in Advanced WordPress, or you can go on advancedwp.org, and that's got links to our Facebook group, our Google+, Meetup.com, everything. So more than welcome to give it a try. And also we want to thank WP Engine, man. I mean, they kind of stepped up and said, hey, we like what you guys are doing. Our Facebook Meetup group has like 1,800 plus people on it, so they loved it. They wanted to sponsor us in some way, shape, or form, so they offered to host advancedwp.org for the next 2 years for free. So really kind of want to thank them for that. And again, if you guys get a chance, just like with at Coburge SD, go up and say thank you to @WP Engine if you can on Twitter to thank them for hosting us. So yeah, let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and start sharing. I'll go last. Depending on how many people show up, and I'll definitely be talking about some of my stuff. So go ahead, brother, go first.
And so I just have like a advanced AWP question, although it can also relate to PHP because what I've seen in my family business is, well, to begin with, my family business, they have a restaurant and they need their chefs to be able to get information of the prices of the vegetables, meats, and everything in one location rather than going to multiple locations. So I had an idea where, what if this could be served through an API through WP, because it's really easy for someone to log in really fast and get data from one central location, or even sometimes the chefs log into their own website with AWP, but I have no clue how to make the API work.
So explain first again. You're talking about a chef API for restaurants.
Yeah, because they need to know the pricings for the vegetables,
okay,
meats, and all that stuff.
Well, in that case, what you're looking for is okay. So from the API perspective, has anybody here played around with the JSON API plugin at all, or had any experience with it? Okay.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is give the JSON API plugin a try. It's in the repo. Pretty sure it's in the repo. If not, I know for a fact it's in GitHub. And try just downloading it, running it. What it'll do is it'll create a standard JSON API for whatever piece of content you have in WordPress. So if you have a custom host type, it'll automatically create a JSON API for it. You can I believe you can lock down the API based off of users, so you can have a whole lockdown infrastructure if you want to. But what you're talking about doing is not necessarily an API for the restaurants per se, but you're talking about wanting to do something for like grocery stores or like local markets for restaurants?
No, because like for example, in the family restaurant, we have chefs that they have to log in to get the pricings for certain ingredients for that day, and they need to know the best prices.
So where are you getting the data from? Where are you getting the data from?
They usually have to log into different companies or suppliers in general.
Okay.
And they usually have their websites, but they don't get along. So you have to log into different websites every single time. Okay. So it'd be nice to save time to just have one central location to log in.
You're in my area of expertise, which is web scraping. You'd want to scrape the data off of those other pages. The problem is depending on how, legally speaking, if you're required to log in, then you're running into a problem if you try to scrape stuff. because in many cases you are by definition breaking the terms of service of a lot of websites. Scraping data off of just Amazon.com is not an issue. Scraping data off of a logged in session of Amazon.com is breaking the law. So you want to be careful with that. I mean, I always joke, but it's true, you don't ever want to do something where you have to ask permission. Like, you want to make sure that whatever startup idea you have or whatever project you're doing, you don't have to ask anybody permission for data or for information or for anything. But in this case, since it's something that you want to get that information, the only way you're going to be able to get it is by working a deal out with whoever is providing the information. In this case, the grocery stores, the people, the suppliers and so forth. Yeah. So, and they may very well have their own system that they want the chefs using because they don't want to buy from anybody else, but they want them to buy from themselves. So, from a WordPress perspective, easy implementation. If you're building your own custom post types and you're collecting the data somehow and inputting the data, maybe importing it in via CSV somehow into CSV importer into a custom post type that has that information available for the chefs.
Okay.
But it would be very hard to see how you get that data. And how you get that data, not just get that data, but how you get that data daily, actively, because they don't want the data that you grabbed from yesterday, they want the data from this morning before they go out and buy stuff or order stuff. So I know because I've tried scraping grocery store sites before. So can I answer your question though? JSON API, perfect API system that if you want to play around with it. And I know isn't there an API for a JSON API thing for Jetpack?
I'm not sure.
Anybody else have any time with this? Any experience with APIs in terms of WordPress? Okay.
I mean, gathering APIs, but creating them out of scratch from data from remote places sounds like lots of work. And you have to log in to get that data too?
Yeah, most of
Ooh, that's good.
You've built APIs before, right? In WordPress, using the endpoint?
I've never really had the need to build my own for others to collect, but sounds like a job for that JSON API plugin. Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned that a couple times, right? Yeah. That's basically to put an API out there, right?
Well, the thing is, like, WordPress already has an endpoints API built into it that you can attach to anything. So I can say, I can build an endpoint API. In fact, I forgot who the hell it was that taught me that. It was Pete Mull that taught me at WordCamp Las Vegas last year. And basically, you can put in your actual template, I think it was, and whenever I go to something, the category, or something, the taxonomy, or whatever the listing is, then you can put that endpoint API piece, so slash JSON, and that bit of code would generate a JSON based off of the specific data that's available on that page. So WordPress can do that by default. All the JSON plugin
that wasn't for the plugin at all?
Well, all the plugin does is take advantage of that without you having to write any code for it.
So you're saying any URL, like I have post right now, I can put
you can add the endpoints API to it,
and then you receive that.
Just generate a JSON API for it. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it seems to me like his problem, he doesn't need the API on his site, he needs the API on the grocery store site to get the data from.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to find.
Yeah. I mean, you could ask him, but good luck.
Right.
Sorry.
You offer to put it in for him.
I keep forgetting for the live stream. I got to move this thing around so everybody sees who's talking. Otherwise, they're just staring at their foreheads. All right. Well, do you have anything you want to share, or any other questions you have, or anything like that besides that?
No, I think I'll just have to give it a try and see how we can
if you
get all the data together.
Like I said, if you want to make your own API, you can using the endpoints API. It's all in the codex, so you can read up on it. It's all there and available. So
I know there's apps like on your phone. I mean, it's not really WordPress related, but there's apps that will search multiple brick-and-mortar stores for prices on different products and produce and stuff. So if a chef is looking for the freshest produce around for certain products, they can type it in there. Maybe
maybe looking to see if they have some type of WordPress plugin or something that goes along with their app.
Well, there's also whole websites dedicated to showing you listings of available APIs for you to use. So if it's a matter of the chef ordering from somewhere, like he may not get an API that allows to get it directly from his supplier that he's used to getting it from, but if you can show him, attach it to an API for like Amazon or for some other provider that maybe delivers to his area, and he can get that information relatively quickly, it might help you out from that perspective. There's whole websites dedicated to just searching APIs. I spend a little bit too much time on those websites, but it's a lot of fun to see what kind of information is out there, what kind of information is available. While we're going through, I'll see if I can remember the URL for one in particular, so I can give it to you. So, anybody else have anything else to add to this one? Yes, go ahead.
Well, just the price is also not the only criteria for chefs. A lot of time they want to know freshness and other aspects of it. Sometimes price is not an issue. They want the quality.
And the question you have to really ask is, how is the chef already getting his information? Does he go into the local grocer and he walks to work in front of him every day and just picking it up himself? Is he going to Fresh and Easy or some other place? Costco? Is he buying it in bulk? Is he doing it fresh frozen? That kind of stuff. So you're right. Quality is probably the more important piece if they're taking the time to actually research this stuff. Sorry, brother, go ahead. Next one.
Nothing too specific for me right now, actually.
Want to share anything? No problem.
See if something comes up later.
No problem. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, so what we're kind of going to be working on at work is a content distribution system where you basically, it'll be a plugin for WordPress that you submit a document with certain keywords or short codes, and it distributes it along all the websites that have the actual plugin, and within that plugin you would have all your personal information, your city, your state, and it's sort of like for SEO, and it allows you to kind of get fresh content that's a little bit spun on your site weekly or monthly. So that's a little bit what we're working on right now. I don't really have anything to add to that, other than I wish there was a plugin that did it right off the bat.
I swear I just ran into a plugin that did that same thing. Like, you set up network sites, right? And you have your content, and you send out posts or pages or whatever to your various sites, right?
Yeah.
And you want to spin it before?
Yeah.
Like, give SEO juice and like link backs or whatnot?
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I'll do some Googling for that, but
I know there's a service that does it, and I was looking at some of the content, and it's 3 years old. And if I take one sentence and I look for it, it's on 100 other sites.
That's the problem that you run into with having original content.
So I would be controlling this a little bit on our end, where we would have our writers submit the content, and then it would update our network.
Okay. I'm just thinking, like, you'd have to make sure, like, the spinner is smart, right? Because Google's so smart now. Like, if they catch, like, one of your sites, like, they're all going to get... I mean, I'm no SEO guru or anything.
On the network, if you're sharing server IPs like that.
Right. I'm just saying that a plugin like that definitely has use, but you definitely would have to be careful, because I know Google is really smart now, but...
Yeah, if you change it up just enough, you'll get away with certain things. Google, in my opinion, hasn't penalized too much for duplicate content. The first 5 sites that it sees with that same content, it usually gets some nice Google love, and everyone else may not even be indexed for that page. But I haven't really seen a de-indexing of that entire site because of duplicate content.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, I guess, besides the subject. If you did create a plugin like that, I'm sure there would be a marketplace for it. Are you going to sell it?
It may be released.
It's like premium?
Probably. For now, it would be on a network of my clients.
Yeah, that's cool.
How long ago it's been updated, but it does that. It goes out, it's great. It will pull in the content, and then using synonyms, it will spin it. I haven't used it in a while, but it worked pretty well when I used it.
Cool.
And then it will also submit it to thousands of different article submission sites.
That would help you get like backlinks maybe.
Yeah, if you wanted to get backlinks. One thing I did notice the last time I did use it was that a lot of those article submission sites are now down. So it'll kind of...
Yeah, my concern's not too much about submitting it to get the link back, although that would be nice. It's more or less updating sites, just say templates, with fresh content that's somewhat spun or personalized to that specific site. So it's changed just enough, like the company name, the business name, the location.
So you'd be taking an article from like Yahoo?
No, I'd have a writer that would write the article and then put in certain shortcodes to handle that.
Because there's another way you could do it called a curation tool, where it will go and pull articles from around the web, and then you can edit those articles and provide links back.
Yeah, the biggest issue with scraping for content is it is duplicate. You don't have a writer freshly writing something brand new.
If I may make a recommendation, when I first got out of the military in 2009, that was right around the time that Fiverr first came out. I don't know if you guys know what Fiverr is. I made good beer money writing articles for people for $5 a pop. And I'll tell you, if you're looking for fresh content, there's tons. I mean, you just outline what it is that you want. And there are tons of people out there. I would actually lose money if I did that now, but like back then, it was pretty fun, and you get all sorts of crazy shit. Like I wrote articles about stuff like like Shih Tzu dogs and all sorts of crazy stuff. But in terms of finding content, if you're looking for finding content, like I do say that from somebody who scrapes for data. If you're talking about scraping entire articles off of people's web pages, you're sort of borderlining, like running into like legal issues with people finding, because as soon as there's any links or anything like that, and there's pingbacks coming back to you as maybe the person that was referenced in the article, people find this stuff real quick. You can run into serious legal issues if you're not careful with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, scraping's not the big issue because I have writers and I can hire iWriter.com.
So your question is more along the lines of how can I distribute this same content across many customers?
Spun or personalized.
Oh, okay. I get the personalized. Okay, I totally understand the personalized now. And I was thinking to myself, like, how are you going to do that? Okay, I get the personalized.
Because there's plugins that'll spin your stuff before it gets submitted, but it sounds like broken English. They use English words versus an American type grammar.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any of you guys remember Chris Lima's email plugin? What was it called? I forgot. I beta tested it like a year ago. He had this thing where he would send out, like from WordPress, it would send out an email, and in the email he'd have all this personal information about you that he knew about you. So it would say like, hey Michael, whatever, how's the Bastos family doing, blah blah blah, and this and that, and have like this whole spiel based off of data that he knew. But then at the very bottom, it actually had a link to his website, chrislima.com/Michael Bastos. And one of the things that I found that was really cool was I really wanted to click on the link. If it has my name on it, why not click on the link? And I remember him telling me about this. He found some really good conversion rates based on people clicking a link that had their name associated with it. It would go to this pre-formatted, like you're talking about, thing that I would read about what he could do for me or whatever the case was. All personalized again, but at the bottom of the thing that I thought was really genius about this was at the bottom of the page, my page, was a form that was pre-filled out with everything that he already had, and just maybe one or two things that he didn't. And I would, I put in my phone number, my age, or whatever the case is, and I submitted. So it was an interesting test of sort of what you could do with this kind of stuff, in the sense that it was well thought out in how it's sent, and how you get people to click on the link, and how you get people to finish filling out information that they maybe don't have about you. So I didn't have to go through and refill all my shit out, otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But the fact that everything, my name, email, everything was already pre-filled, and it's just one or two lines for me to fill out after that, was sort of interesting. So I'll look it up. I don't remember what the hell it's called anymore, but I'll look it up. It might be something you guys might be interested in taking.
No, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome, thank you for sharing that. And are you planning on releasing this plugin ID anytime soon? Or are you
End of the year.
end of the year? Okay, you working on it already though?
I actually have Andy helping me out a lot on this. He's probably going to be the brainchild behind everything on this plugin.
Awesome. We'd love to take a look at it. All right, Jim, go ahead, man. Set me up. Oh yeah. I gotta switch you up. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves.
A good host and all the other garbage. I'm assuming that you can't leave your hosting company and your website's just trash and you can't figure out what the heck's going on. It's just crazy, stupid, slow, and everybody tells you that it's you. All right, it's your bad website design. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to give you a few techniques or a few recommendations on plugins. And the way I start this with is speeding up WordPress, the easy route plugins. All right, there's a lot of ways you can speed up WordPress doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and I have some of that on my website at hackguard.com. But to start, there are 3 things. Actually, could you scroll it up just a little bit more, Michael? There should be 3 tenets, I guess you could say. One will be database, the other is images, and the other CSS. So there's one below.
That is the furthest down I can go.
Okay, now you can, that's fine. That's fine. All right, so starting with the database, a lot of times when I go to a client site and they have a really slow database, or should I say a really slow website, the funny thing is that I'll see that it is like 400 megabytes in size. And when I log in and I actually do some checks, a lot of times it's like 100 megabytes of revisions and all kinds of craziness. And we don't think about this as web designers because we are content people. We throw stuff on there, we like lots of revisions because we want to go back, and the customer really likes to go back and look at his old stuff that he has, so revisions are awesome. But there's 2 plugins that are really cool. One is called DB Cache, which I've used on a number of websites that have big database, a lot of heavy database queries. And DB Cache, all it does is cache queries. This is one of those plugins. Try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, delete it. But you may find that if you have some sites that are pretty heavily loaded with a lot of hits, that the DB Cache actually works. And I'm assuming that you're using some sort of caching plugin like WP Cache or something like that. But this seems to add a little bit extra bump. And for those of you who don't like those caching plugins, like a lot of times I don't use them. I don't believe they're really effective unless you have some serious hits. So I don't normally install them off the cuff. But what I will do is I'll install DB Cache because a lot of times that's the problem with the database on a heavily hit site. The other one's WP Optimize, and there's a couple of optimization plugins you can use out there, but this is like one of the easiest. And what I like about it is that it has the option of clearing the revisions I mentioned, but also of optimizing the database. So you don't need to keep these in. This is a nice thing about these plugins. The DB Cache either works or doesn't work, delete it, or keep it. The WP Optimize, you can install it on the first of the month, run it, delete it. Wait a couple months and install it. So in other words, when I talk to my clients about WordPress websites, the first thing I do is, what the heck, you got 35 plugins. That's crazy, and you ask me why your website is slow. He's got 35 plugins. So one of the things I do is I start cutting all the junk out and explaining that you can remove things and use them periodically. It takes, 5 seconds to install a plugin? So what the heck, just install a plugin. And then delete it when you're no longer using it. So WP Optimize is one I often will install and delete.
Does that delete the revisions as well?
Yeah, so it has options. When you go into the WP Optimize, it gives you lots of options. Do you want to clear the revisions? Yes or no? Do you want to optimize the database? Yes or no? It's your choice. You can leave it active. I just delete it. I know that it's a good plugin. I can type WP Optimize and add plugins as fast as anybody, install it, do my work, and delete it. Get it out of there. Because many of you may not know this, but I've tested it. Inactive plugins will slow your website down. Inactive plugins will add memory usage to your website. So if you're at GoDaddy or some other host that has a very low 128 megabyte RAM allowance, perfectly fine for 90% of the things. GoDaddy's a perfectly fine host. But when you're going to add 30 plugins to it, it's not going to work. It's going to be dead slow. So just word to the wise, keep your plugin limit down to a minimum. Use these database cleanup tools. The next thing is images. I talked about this before. Lazy load is really awesome because lazy load You're not going to use it unless you have a heavily image-laden website. But if you have one of those websites that are like a fashion website where you've got like 20 posts and they've all got an image that go all the way down the page, lazy load is awesome. I've got a client who, lingerie website, and her website was really slow, and it's a good website.
We all know it's slow.
A lot of nice pictures. I go, why is it so slow?
It's all about the content.
It's all about the content, yeah.
It's all about the content. Well, one of the reasons why is because she had these massive pictures on the site, and they were going 3-4 page lengths long.
What's this site?
I'll tell you later.
Lingerie pictures.
Yeah, but what was neat about it is that when we did the lazy load on it, it really improved the performance of the above the fold. So when the client went to the page, instantaneous, boom, header pick, done. Clients were happy, and then as they reviewed the site, you actually loaded when the images were brought up into the screen. I said it before. Of course, I do web hosting stuff too, so I've always been a not fan of WP Smush It, but I'm more of a fan now. And the most recent versions, they've improved it. Just use it. The nice thing you can do about it is they have some other functions where you can not run it constantly, but you can run it when you have a bunch of images, you can individually smush them. So you have two options. You don't have to run it all the time. The thing that you can't see on the screen is CSS. Has anyone heard of WP CSS? So now what happens is in a lot of the WordPress optimization plugins, like Super Cache and the others, they do have caching options where they reduce the size of your CSS and everything. But like I said, guys, if you're not having a massively hit website, don't use the big, ugly caching programs. Just go with individual ones that target the function that you need to be done. And the target that I often find is that there are usually lots of CSS files, maybe 10 or 20 in an average WordPress site. Many of them are pretty bloated, badly compressed, badly set up themes or whatever. So what the WPCS does is it compresses the CSS and it eliminates the white space effectively at the same time. So it does what the caching plugins do, and it does it without all the overhead of the caching plugins. So if you're using Super Cache now, for example, and you just want to get rid of it and you want to try something that kind of gives you the same flavor, then go with the DB Cache and the WP Smush It and the WP CSS. Those three things actively work and do a lot of the things that caching does in terms of improvement. Yes?
Have you tested WP Minify?
I played with WP Minify and I didn't see that it was that much better, but it's pretty much along the same lines as the other script.
But I think it does JavaScript as well.
It may. I think that I've been happier with the WP CSS because I tend to find that it's the CSS that tends to be bloated, and most developers are really tight about their JavaScript, so I don't worry too much about it. There's a couple of good page speed tools out there. Which one? What's the Google one called? Google Page what?
Google Page.
Yeah, Google Page Speed Insights, etc. And you can run that against your website and you can see what is the bloat. And it'll give you things like whether your CSS is really bloated or whether your JavaScript is bloated or whether your pictures. So if you use something like the Google Page Speed Insight tool, which is free, you just go find it and install it. If you use that, you'll find that it'll show you what the problems are, and you can use these like little plugins, simple plugins that don't use a lot of memory to do the work instead of installing those big bloated things. So that's about all I have. Does anyone have any questions on any of the parts? Yes.
You may have mentioned it, I may have missed it. The WP CSS, will that combine multiple CSS files or just minify them individually?
All it's doing is compressing them and reducing the white space. Okay. So what it does is it sees this big old bloated CSS file, and then what it will do is it'll all those spaces and everything and paragraphs, it just squishes it down into a small. Most of my themes that I use are just ugly. The CSS are human language. So this takes it and eliminates they're not readable if you were to look at them in your.
So it does on the actual live CSS file that you have there. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's fine if you're working in a development environment with a non-minified version. Mm-hmm. You upload it, but then you're going to have to run that plugin each time in order to minify it or to.
It's pretty much an active plugin, so you don't have to think about it.
It automatically
checks. Yeah, it automatically does it. Yeah, so and it's fast. I haven't seen any downsides of using it at all.
I guess the only bad thing is if you had to pull that file back. I mean, it doesn't create two versions of it, right? It just
No.
has the one version.
Just on the fly, as far as I've found. I could be wrong, but as far as I'm aware, it's on the fly.
On DB Cache, have you played around with DB Cache Reloaded?
No.
Okay. I played around with DB Cache one time, and I don't remember if I started getting like serious error, like fault errors back. It may have, I don't remember which one it was. It may either have been DB Cache or DB Cache Reloaded, but I'll try DB Cache this time around and see if it gives me anything different.
You'll know right off.
Yeah.
Like I said, DB Cache is a user.
I've used one of those two before, but I remember having like serious load issues where I just kept getting a number of errors with it. But it may have been the reloaded one. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, before you run any of these, you always run like Google PageSpeed Insights. Always run that first, and then install a plugin. If you don't see that much of a difference, then trash it. Don't just throw them on there because someone told you that they're good. You know, run a diagnostic on how your site is running, and then install them. Wait a little while, and then run it again, and then see if you see a big difference.
But if you just optimize your database, then the DB cache thing is not going to make a difference if you run page speed. You know what I mean?
The DB cache, I agree, but I think that the DB cache thing is more of a query thing. It's sort of a caching the queries. So when you have a person who's going to a website and they're doing a lot of things on that individual site, it's actually caching them so when they go back to the page, it's not reloading, it's not quick querying the database. So it's a little different. The optimization, on the other hand, it strips out all the garbage. It takes out, like I said, the white space and other things that are in the database. So they do have two very different functions. But I think a lot of people underestimate the downside of the revisions. The revisions in WordPress just kill you. Particularly if you have a site that has a lot of social media traffic, those revisions that you're doing, and then because you're constantly updating stuff, you can turn that off. I think last time you talked about it, you go into the wconfig and you reduce the number of revisions and that sort of thing. But most of the people, when they do their upgrade, for whatever reason, it either kills that or something happens and it just reverts.
Your WP config should be the one file that doesn't get.
It shouldn't touch them, but I don't know why. Because oftentimes I have several websites.
It could be that they've just removed that as an option in WP config, and that might be.
It may be too. But I have many times where I have upgraded with the WP config set to leave only 1 or 2 revisions, and a month later went back and there was like 1,000 revisions from all the work I did. So maybe that's just voodoo. I don't know. But. Okay. Anything else?
Do you use other testing tools or just PageSpeed?
GT Metrics, Google PageSpeed, and those are the 2 primary that I believe are the most serious tools. And the nice thing about GT Metrics is that it has location. I almost always do my tests from Texas, but if you want to do your tests from a different country because the latency is farther, so even though when you run WordPress, it's really fast in California, you may find that because of a few things that you're doing, that if you're going to run it in Germany, the latency is going to be increasing radically, and the site's going to load really slow. So don't assume that just because your website's loading really good in California, that it's going to load in other places really well. Because of things you haven't done on your website. So GT Metrics is good because once you install all this stuff and you see a slight improvement, you can do GT Metrics and do a check in Sweden, for example. I think they have a Swedish location. You can check the connection from there, and then or Australia, and you can see that it's a big difference. And it basically compounds. It takes what appears to be a really small problem and it exponentially makes it larger. It makes it easier to see the error or the slowness.
Nice. Well, thank you.
A quick thing for clients that upload images, and you know that they're probably going to upload like a 5 megabyte image all the time, is something we found the other day is limit image size. And you can say 1500 is the max, and it resizes the largest photos down before it gets into the while it's being uploaded, so it doesn't save that large 5 megabyte file, and you don't have to go in and smush it. So
I was trying to keep it easy.
Yeah, okay.
But no,
this is advanced WordPress. This isn't easy. Just install. We want the meat. We want the good stuff. The stuff that like that will keep us up at night.
Yeah, so if I have a client that I know is gonna upload images, they have to have that, otherwise it's just gonna.
What's it called again?
Limit image size.
We used to take notes, and I got bad at that after a while. So after we get done here, I'll watch the video again and just annotate everything, write it all down, and put it up on the wiki or something. Put it up on the wiki. Awesome. All right, brother, you want to share?
Yeah. All I got today is a plugin. It's called Uploads by Proxy. Basically, what it does is let you work in your local environment, and instead of having to download your entire media folder from like your dev or your production environment, it will just search for the images when they're requested and just find them online for you. I haven't tested it out. I've worked with it in Drupal, and it's amazing. So, it should be pretty cool.
Awesome. How's your experiences with the CSS libraries going? Last time we spoke,
the whole word list?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I took a look at it, and it needs a lot of server configuration. Like, you need a lot of Ruby and other programs running on the server. And it seemed like just going with something like a build tool like Grunt or just using.
And that's why you started playing around with Grunt.
Right. Yeah. It just seems like doing that and then just having your package and using that for your production environment seems a lot. Just about as much hassle. So
there seems a lot of us Ruby guys that they keep wanting to shove Ruby into WordPress, right?
So maybe next month, but
okay.
We'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. All right, Leon, you're up.
I don't really have too much. I've been on vacation, so I really
Tell us about your
too much work. But
I've heard people do that.
I updated my McGeeMedia.net website recently, so you can look at that if you want.
That's
pretty much it. So I built it with.
Is it responsive?
Yeah, you can test the responsiveness if you want, but it's built with Bootstrap.
I would, but my laptop's not responding.
That was a shot.
Hamburger. Yeah, I get rid of the slider when I do it. So yeah, so McGeeMedia.net. I still need to put more work into it, but
how's client work going for you?
Good. Actually, I applied for a job. I applied for a job that I thought was going to be PHP development, but then it turns out they wanted to train me to do Cold Fusion. So I don't know. You know anything about Cold Fusion? Is it worth getting into that?
Scary.
Just say
that would be a bad idea, though.
Oh yeah.
I've been recommending you in terms of PHP jobs that have been coming up, so they may get emails coming up soon. So.
Yeah, I need to apply to more of the places that are on the SD PHP job board and all that.
Definitely. By the way, anybody here know about SD PHP as well? You guys are. If you're developing in WordPress, you're developing in PHP. So I highly recommend also checking out SD PHP to get more familiar with the language. They do awesome meetups as well every month, and I think he still does the study groups every 2 weeks. So.
We do the study group. Yeah, you also created that code school meetup group that coincides with it.
I've literally had to take it down because I haven't had time to post it. But
well, yeah, on Monday somebody showed up because of that meetup. Like basically, like this little kid came who's into like C++ and wants to make video games. So he came to the PHP meetup because of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, man. Go ahead. You're next.
I actually don't have anything to share this month. I'm in the middle of moving.
Gamification.
I know, you promised us gamification.
I haven't had time.
You want to talk about the plugin at least? Or talk about what?
I don't have anything new to share on it, unfortunately.
You sure we shared last week? Because that was cool.
It's the only thing I was here for, was to hear Liz's talk on gamification.
I don't have anything prepared.
No, that's fine.
If you want, I can bring it all back up and come back to me.
Yeah, we'll come back to you.
All right.
All right, Matt. Speak. Yeah.
We're just doing
yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I just
how was WordCamp LAX?
Yeah, I spoke at WordCamp, which was great. My first speaking gig there. That was fun. Did troubleshooting. And for my slides, I built it on a thing called Liquid Slider, which was a lot of fun. Way too much work, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah, now I'm just signed off on a project to do a new site for a school back east. It's going to be some fun custom post type stuff.
Nice.
It's like a youth crisis encyclopedia site. Not fun content, but fun the way we're gonna lay it out and stuff.
It's code fun.
Yeah, yeah. So
We advertised this group on that presentation.
I did because somebody goaded me to do it, but not that I don't need goading.
That's not true.
You were like, "Are you part of any Facebook groups?"
No, I said, what forums do you go to
Yeah.
For information.
for help in that troubleshooting?
Yeah, but we were in a room full of beginners, and I was like, beginner WordPress Facebook group.
Not advanced.
Yeah, all of a sudden we get a whole bunch of
Please do not
questions.
show your face. Ask questions.
If all of a sudden we get a whole bunch of questions that are like, is there a plugin for how to put in my emails? Then that's Sasha's fault.
Yeah.
Is there a plugin for selling plugins?
Why is it You didn't have to say AWP. You could have said something else.
Hey, real quick, somebody just put on here, I guess our previous discussion about duplicate content. You guys might want to do a research on this, but I guess Penguin 2.0, Google's latest release, really hates duplicate content. So I don't know if that's the case or not, or it's unhappy with duplicate content is exactly what he said here. So I'll take a look at it and I'll see if that's the case too. I'll post it up on the Facebook group. But
I've been reading a lot
you've
about
been
it.
reading about it, okay?
You got an SEO watching?
Yeah, we got an SEO dude watching here. Lipamat. Say hi, Lipamat. Hi, Lipamat. All right. You got like 7 or 8 people watching, so it's not bad. Yeah. For a first time, it's like this is totally like off the cuff too. Like I grabbed this shit like on my way out the door. So
It's working.
it's working, yeah.
I have a question. If Penguin doesn't like duplicate content, then what about the case for those who blog and it's listed in like an archiver category? Those are separate files, although it's pulling from the same source, but
If it's the
that
same
can
URL,
be considered
it's the same
duplicate
URL, it doesn't
content.
matter.
Duplicate content.
Like-
I understand from page to page.
It's from domain to domain. From everything I've read so
Oh, I
far,
see.
duplicate content is between domains and specifically between IPs.
So you mean if someone had like a landing page on their site? Because I read if you have that, like people think that if you have a specific
The reality of it is we're dependent on whatever Google actually announces and talks about, because the rest of this stuff, the algorithm-wise, is all Google magic. That's the truth. Like the push comes to shove, like the actual, short of what Google releases about these releases, but what they're actually doing, it's hard to sort of figure out with each release what the actual algorithm is. A great thing to watch if you ever get a chance to is all the Matt Cutts videos. Anybody watch the Matt Cutts videos on YouTube? Matt Cutts sort of breaks all of this stuff down, like bit by bit by bit. So I don't know at this point. I know what it used to be, but I don't know at this point what's changed about it. Whether or not it's because it used to be that you had duplicate content if it was multiple domains but sharing the same IP. Because what Google was referring from that
That's what
was
I'm talking about, like the landing pages, people buy specific, like if you're a dentist, you might have teeth whitening, then you might have like one-day crowns, and they'll have a domain name that actually is all pointing to the same website.
Yeah, and if it was multiple websites on the same IP, I remember that was an issue, because what they were trying to stop is the content farms that basically would throw everything on the same server, and they would have like 100 websites on the same server with all duplicate content. Not calling your stuff a content farm, brother. Not at all. But that's what I remember.
500 sites.
Yeah, 500 sites. But I remember that was sort of the big thing that at the time Google was trying to stop.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend watching the Matt Cutts videos. It's sort of the Bible when it comes to this kind of stuff, because this is the dude that actually, his job is to find search spam. so he's the guy that's basically going to put everybody, he's the guy that pisses everybody off with every release. because his job is specifically to refine the algorithm better and better, little by little, to just make the search better for everybody. So go on YouTube, look up Matt Cutts, C-U-T-T-S, and watch every single video he's got on there. And he talks about all this stuff. It's been a while since I watched it. I think the last time I watched the Matt Cutts video was like last year, when I actually cared about SEO. Okay.
Take it with a grain of salt though, because he talks a lot about what you should not be doing, which everyone jumps on and does, because they don't want you to do it.
I just have like a scratch surface knowledge of SEO in order to educate potential clients, but for the most part, I just believe in farming that out to someone who specializes in that.
The same way that with the graphic designers I work with, they come to me specifically because they know I'm going to program the job. I'm not going to try and say something about their design or whatnot. I don't know. I think that's a job in itself.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering that question. Go ahead, brother. You're next.
To go back on his subject, you can always copyscape anything that you're worried about, and that will tell you on the web if there's any duplicate. But
Copyscape?
Copyscape?
Tells you if you have duplicate content, gives you a percentage, like your content is 90% copied from somewhere else.
It'll tell you that website that it's copied from. So if you're Fiverr-ing something, if you're getting some type of freelance done, you want to copyscape it to make sure that they didn't pirate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That totally reminds me of being in college, and our professors used to like give us these reports after we turned in our actual like write-ups that would say like, your shit is like 20% stolen, or like 10%, plagiarized, or whatever the case is. I remember that shit.
They're probably using Copyscape.
Well, something
it was digital that you gave it to them.
Well, my mom teaches for National University, and she does run papers that she suspects, because she can tell anyway, so she'll take the paper and she'll run it through, and there's always a handful of people who plagiarize.
It'll show chunks where
in college was a different story. In college, I was doing my computer science degree, and you can't hardly ever plagiarize anything in that field. But high school, it was good to be a child in the 90s, man. Before Google, that was good, man. All right, thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else you want to share as well? Share your site, what you do?
Well, on the WordPress aspect of it, I'll stick to the subject.
Yeah.
You know, I'm new to this group, so I don't know how advanced everybody else is. I've been doing websites and especially WordPress stuff for a long time, and one of the things I do is look and scour the web for all kinds of stuff like WordPress plugins and everything. And everybody's heard of Warrior Forum? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's one thing I'm on a lot is Warrior Forum, picking up different things. There's a lot of junk on there, but there's some good stuff too that pops up on there. Warrior Forum.
Yeah, I've been on that site, and like I've just seen so many. They just like steal plugins and resell them for like hundreds of dollars.
Well, sometimes people really do some good stuff. I mean, you kind of have to have a trained guy to look at what's good and what's not. But yeah.
Why wouldn't they do some other asset? I mean, I get there's a large audience on that site, but like.
Are you using it for getting plugins, or are you using it for finding what plugins are good for what?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to necessarily buy the plugins that are on there, but you can look and see what options of plugins that are out there. You know, like for instance, the article marketing robot. That's one of those things that I found on Warrior Forum, and I used it and I liked it. And so I just find it's a good resource to kind of fix, because people are constantly posting different things on there, and yeah, there's pirated stuff, but if you want like the most up-to-date, that's one of the...
It's awful lot like advanced WordPress Facebook group.
There's no pirate stuff on there.
There's no pirate stuff on there, but in terms of people posting plugins and interesting stuff.
There is, but only for a few seconds.
Yeah, it like massively scrolls all the way down with everybody else's comments.
And the other thing, I don't know if anybody uses AWS here.
Oh gosh. That guy right there.
So I'm a big advocate of AWS. I mean, it's a little bit more expensive than regular hosting. I have a reseller's hosting account as well that I can host as many sites as I want. But when it comes to, if you're doing large scale stuff or websites that really need some customization, then Amazon Web Services, their hosting is going to be the future. It's pretty amazing. So I recommend it.
I recommend it only for people that want to get into server side stuff. If they actually want to maintain their own servers, they want to be working command line, for example, and do all their own stuff. Like, I don't recommend it if it's people that are relatively new or have no experience with command line, have no experience with server management themselves, because it can hurt them in the long run.
I thought this was an advanced.
It is. But even then, like you ask anybody in the group here, I've done talks on AWS, I've done presentations and stuff. There's a lot of people that can code, a lot of people that are advanced stuff that just don't want to deal with server management.
Okay.
So that's a different side, different ballpark altogether. But
well, like he was mentioning before, like your servers loading in Australia, for instance. You know, with AWS, you would create a server in Sydney, or you would do some type of server caching. You know, I mean, there's just so much advanced stuff that you can do with it. So
I'm going to talk about. But thank you for sharing that. Anything else you want to talk about?
No.
Awesome. All right, brother, your turn.
Could I use the
Yeah, go ahead.
projector? What kind of hookup is
It's VGA.
VGA. Okay. What I was going to share today is for anyone developing a theme or a plugin, it's a option framework. So, I've been working on my first theme that I want to try and sell back to the marketplaces as a premium theme. And I was searching through different options frameworks rather than building my own. And I started to use NHP options framework, which has been around for a little while, made by Lee Mason. But when I found it earlier this year, it had been sitting on GitHub for like a year and hadn't been updated. So then I ended up finding one called Redux. And Redux, and the guy that started that one forked the NHP options framework from Lee, and has been constantly improving upon it and adding to the source code. And recently he combined with another options framework out there called Simple Options Framework. And they just released version 3 as a beta. And the cool thing is they just rewrote everything so it's object oriented, and it follows all of the, from what I can see, follows all the WordPress option standards. And it's 100% open source, which is cool.
I mean, it doesn't give you like this massively oversized GUI interface with magical buttons and...
Well, it does give you, it builds upon the NHP.
Okay.
So this is the demo, and it gives you these tabs on the left. So it's a little bit different look and feel than a natural WordPress options page. But the way it stores everything in the database and interacts with WordPress itself is pretty standardized. And they've got a really easy way for you to add your own hooks with, if you wanted to build your own fields and that type of thing. So, it's got all the standard stuff, color chooser that pulls the standard WordPress color chooser. They've got it set up for gradients and, more than anything, more than what most people would even want to use. The nice thing that it's option or object oriented is you can use it it'll interact with multiple instances. So if you use it for multiple plugins, it's not gonna bump heads with somebody else's plugin that uses the same framework. And it can be used for plugins and themes. It's got import export. It's got image fields that are normal standard image fields. It's got password fields.
Does it have repeating fields?
Yeah, let's see. It has multi-select, and it's got a nice little search feature for the drop downs and everything. So you start typing it, and it'll start searching through those options. Let's see. Categories. It'll pull categories from the database. Pages, all of that stuff. Menus. You can do multi-select with all of that. Let's see, repeater fields. I know that repeater fields may have just been added. It's got drag and drop sortables, so you can fill in these text boxes and drag them to reorder them. As an example, for something like this, with the sortable text option, you could use it for like social media. People could throw all their links in there, and they could reorder how they want the social media to appear. And it's an easy query from the options from the database to throw that right into a theme file. It's got field validation, and I swear they have.
Is this like a plugin that you install that helps out, or how do you actually use this?
It's on GitHub. So let me see. So it's got its own site that they just released, because their plan is that it's going to be 100% open source and free, but they're also going to have extensions for it that'll be paid to help support further development. So that's where their demo is that we were just looking at, and they're working on building the documentation. But like I said, they're still in beta right now. But they've cleaned up a lot of stuff. It's probably one of the better frameworks that I've seen, if not the best, as far as adding options to a plugin or a theme. It's probably better used for themes than for plugins, because unless your plugin just has a massive amount of options, it might be a little overkill, but it's perfect for themes. It's not a lot of bloat either.
So what made you decide to use this rather than just like doing it yourself with the options?
Because I wanted stuff like the sortable fields, and they're working a lot on making it user-friendly for just the average person, as far as like how they're doing some of their field options. They're also going to be integrating it pretty soon with the WordPress theme customizer, which is something that I was looking for. So what they're talking about is, if you have 100 options in your options file, you can say, hey, I want these 5 to be in the theme customizer, and then it'll load them up and work right in conjunction with that.
And this is 100% open source.
Yeah.
That's really pretty sweet. Yeah.
Oh, and they're one of the guys. Actually, the first guy that pulled it, forked it from NHP. I think his name's like Ghost1227 on GitHub. He actually works. I don't know if he works with with the Easy Digital Downloads with Pippin, or if he just builds plugins for Easy Digital Downloads, but he's got some connections there. So he's got, they're just about finished with the EDD licensing support. So if you are creating like a premium plugin or premium theme, you can have it so that it's super easy for somebody to throw in their licensing. And then if you're using EDD to sell your plugin, it'll ping back to find out if that licensing code is still current, for updates and stuff like that. And they're also working on post and page meta box support. I don't know if they're going to add that in or not, but they're talking about it. And you know, I mean, it wouldn't be anything near, I think, as powerful as like advanced custom fields, but maybe something more simple that you can use one framework to throw in some, you know, options to the you know, posts and pages and stuff.
So does this have like some JavaScript like drag and drop stuff added to it as well?
Yeah, each field has its own, potentially could have its own JavaScript that gets loaded. A lot of these work off of the same JavaScript file. I forget which one he's using, but for a lot of these drop downs, because they have the search functionality there. This, for the fonts, that's the other thing, it's fully integrated with Google Web Fonts too, for anyone that wants to use that. That's about it.
Nice. So,
pretty awesome.
Are you looking to build on top of this with your own plugin, or are you using this as sort of like
I'm using
an
this
options tree style?
like options tree style. Yeah, I'm actually since coming here, I was using a different framework before that I was building a theme with. Ended up scrapping that and going with Roots. So I'm using the Roots base theme and using this in conjunction to build a, we'll see if it's going to be a premium theme or what, but.
Does Roots have an option panel thing?
What's that?
Does Roots doesn't have an option panel?
No, not natively, no.
Do you have an options framework you use?
Oh, the other thing too that's cool is that they have a, you can reset the defaults, so you can set the defaults that you want for all the fields, and then you can also set it up so that you give the user choices, like style 1 has this color for all of the links, and then style 2, and it'll pre-populate, almost like resetting all the defaults, but it'll pre-populate with whatever you specify.
Nice.
Are those CSS files then, does it make a bunch of files that it imports, or is it unified and impress it all?
No, it's completely independent of anything, any of the theme files themselves. It's the overall theme to this part of it. You could easily rewrite it to whatever you want.
Thank you for sharing, brother. That was pretty cool.
Oh, and I'll all my notes are on an Evernote, so I'll post that to the Facebook group too later today.
Thanks. Thank you. Cool. All right, Devin, you are up.
Is that
and I see someone has a.
it's my girlfriend's, because my PC won't hook up to that, so I had to bring her Mac. And do we have a Mac hookup on there?
No, we don't.
Does anybody have a RGB to or VGA converter for a Mac?
No.
Somebody had one last time.
Yeah, it was Rob that had it last time.
All right. Alright, I can do that.
Yeah, dude, by all means, go for it. That's where it's there. If you guys haven't had pizza yet, go ahead and come grab some before it all dies out. Also, feel free to grab the beer. The beer needs to go, so y'all need to start drinking beer.
See, you brought the cooler.
Yes. So my wife threw away my cooler, so she got my follow. Nobody's bored yet. You guys bored?
That Michael guy hasn't showed up yet.
I know.
Cool.
Open table widget.
First thing I want to share is a new plugin I released. It's called Open Table Widget.
Awesome.
Basically, I was going to show you a demo, but unfortunately, I don't have the hookup. But
You can't log into your.
do you have a test environment in here we could just quickly?
Yeah, I can.
Like any Small one.
Do I have a test environment?
Just any backend that's connected to the directory, I can show you.
You have to install 220.
Give it a minute, it'll populate and you can click on it.
Okay, I'll hop back to that.
Okay.
But anyways, I'll show you the demo in a second. It allows you to bring open table reservation forms into your WordPress website. Much better than the widget that their own site gives you. And there's several theming capabilities. Another thing I wanted to share was a theme that I'm finally getting ready to release called Delicious, and it's for restaurants. It's gotten a little bit slow.
Is that a different name?
No, it's the same name.
Oh, it's
And you can pull it up on your computer if you want. It's called, the URL is delicious.wordpress.com. And hopefully it looks good on Ubuntu. I haven't tested it, but...
You haven't tested on Ubuntu on there?
No, I haven't. So you pull the site up and eventually...
For everybody that's on the live stream, this is totally the Wi-Fi here, so... As we're, oh, somebody just said something. Too bad we can't see the screen, really?
Yeah, we can't see the screen.
Okay, so here's the second slide here.
Yeah, I mean, just
See, we got these little light bulbs shaking there. It's kind of cool. I'll go to the third slide here.
Nice. How'd you do that?
CSS3. And then we have our Paris slide.
Oh man.
And I'll show you the first slide. The first slide's my favorite slide. It's like a little wine garden.
Oh shit, look at that.
So we're getting for real on these later slides, dude. Scroll down a little bit more.
I can keep dropping flying.
And I'll show you some of the other things we got. We have this like fixed background layer there where you see the background stays fixed. It's kind of a cool effect. This, you hover over, it gets like a little bigger. Nothing too revolutionary there, but it's subtle goodness. This is a responsive flexi carousel, it's called. And I had to build this, integrate this into to Visual Composer because their carousel is terrible. And every time you responsively resize the screen, it would refresh the browser. So I was like, we need to replace that. And this one's much better.
So you got rid of Visual Composer?
No, I'm using Visual Composer. You can add on widgets by building your own shortcodes into it. So this is essentially a custom shortcode. You click on each one, it loads in a fancy box.
Fancy box size.
Not a foo. I want to show you just one more cool effect here. I might have shown this last time, but I fine-tuned this like page flip effect. So this is like the menu. Imagine this is a menu, and you're checking it out on your PC like we are now. And you flip the page. Whoa, cool effect there. It's like a page turn effect.
And that has touch response too, doesn't it?
Yeah, so you can swipe and it will flip. This is another cool effect. This is like a tri-fold menu. So no restaurant theme has any of these effects yet, so until they steal them from me, but you saw it here first. And so that's kind of cool because like,
so you're about to do this thing takes up.
And then you click on each one.
That's cool, I like that. What library did you use for this one?
I got this little script right here from Code Drops.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite websites for seeing all the cool stuff. I wanted to show you the responsiveness real quick, and then we'll jump back to the open table widget. So you can see how it responds really nicely. Here's the menu. It's not one of these janky like Twitter, just slides down. This one's actually like a panel that slides to the left.
That's Code Drops too, isn't it?
That is.
Yeah.
And then this one's to the left right here.
Nice.
Oh, I forgot I integrated open table widget for this plugin. So here's the view of the widget. as it appears on this. In the sidebar here. Let me just make this full screen again. So you can see that this sidebar kind of, on a small device it goes to the left, and on a large device it switches to the top hat. And I've got, nice little Bootstrap calendar, Bootstrap select options here. And yeah, so hopefully it'll do well. Just waiting for final approval.
Isn't it more fun to not have to do client work, to do these kind of
It's pretty fun.
Because
I'm like, oh, I gotta go back to building a client website. Hopefully no clients are tuning in right now, but
this is advanced WordPress.
it's fun to do themes for sure. I like doing plugins more though, just because.
Plugins are a lot more fun.
Well, we'll see how the support is for the themes. I'm just kind of nervous about the support.
What gave you the idea to do a restaurant theme?
I was just looking for a niche, and I don't know. I got an idea to do like a band theme next for like bands and stuff like that. I like doing niche sites.
If you, I mean, other than the basic download, it's a premium theme, I take it?
Yeah.
Other than doing that, can you make more money also by taking what you have and customizing it for a restaurant?
Sure, yeah, if they wanted to come to me, it's 100% child theme compatible. I've already built 3 or 4 different child themes off this top level theme, and it's really for any business. I built it off the Roots framework as well. It's got advanced custom fields and Visual Composer baked in. So you have 2 really rock solid plugins, plus Layer Slider. Those 3 plugins alone, I mean, that come packaged with the theme. If you didn't know about those before and you buy the theme, that's like you're doing yourself a favor, because those are the top plugins for WordPress as far as I'm concerned right now.
I mean, is that something you'd be interested in if you could kind of pipe in the...
I mean, yeah, if the price is right, eventually, yeah, for sure. For like $500, and no. But
I hear lawyer themes are really hot right now too.
yeah, lawyer. Yeah, you might be looking for one.
So is this, we've got 2.3 or is it?
It's 2.3.
Okay.
I could spend some time to go back and
No, it looks perfect.
but I figured I want to move on.
No, yeah.
Can we get on the Devin?
Yeah.
So you guys can pull it up if you want. Check it out.
Well, no. I don't know if you can pull it up from their machine.
Oh no, I'm checking that. I'm talking about this one.
I did it locally. So it's local.
Like a theme forest or...
Yeah.
There you go. Go ahead and create a site.
Matt, come with those lawyer themes, so it's, you don't want to find.
I had to do my demo for
Actions there, but it doesn't say paste content.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick demo of the back end of this plugin, and I'll just set the links here. I don't know if I really need to do that. So obviously install the plugin.
Did you realize something? Hold on. I have by default permissions. So great. It just throws up on me.
There you go.
Alright.
Not gonna work.
No, it's like freezing.
Rated 5 stars because it deserves it.
And I will be rebooting my machine.
And I'm working on some other cool stuff. So if anyone wants to collaborate or be an author with me, hit me up. Let me know. That is all.
Thank you, Devin.
Both.
You guys also design your chapters.
I want to get some thoughts on what people do as far as the best practice, and if, I don't know, it's kind of been an open, I've done some research and whatnot, and I just wanted to get an idea of what people do for dequeuing jQuery in your functions file, because I've seen it different ways. In the research I've done, I've read that there's some benefits, and I read there's not. I mean, you know, the benefits and whatnot, so.
To dequeuing?
Yeah.
So like you don't want jQuery?
Right.
Like you're talking about setting up conflict or something? Or?
No, where you don't have the WordPress default jQuery loaded, you're actually calling it from Google instead, or you could do it from your server. Like, I've seen it different ways. I know Leon had mentioned it in something I put on Git, but that's not the example I was using. But it just happened to be in there.
What ways have you seen, other than WP?
Both. I mean, some people do it, some people don't.
So I guess the appropriate way is there's a plugin that will do it from Google that you should use that does it the right way. So you should never like actually do it right from your functions file, you know, if possible.
Yeah, there's a, what's it called? It's a use Google
Libraries.
Use Google Libraries or something like that. It'll literally just replace all of the JavaScript libraries that you're visualizing in WordPress with whatever's available at Google's API. So you don't have to do that. That's what he's trying to explain. You don't have to physically modify the function. Now, are you trying to use a different version of jQuery in WordPress?
Well, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, in general, like, I would, for me, I would rather use the best practice or what the majority is doing as opposed to doing it wrong. So, I mean, I guess some of it depends on if you want to use the latest version that Google has jQuery, but then again, if you're running an old plugin and there's conflicts, which I've actually run into that where jQuery is being loaded twice or not properly because of the plugin and there's conflicts, then I have to figure out, is it the plugin? Do I need to do something in the functions? Whatever it is. It just, I don't know, it doesn't...
Well, you can run jQuery, no conflict mode, and I don't remember if WordPress does that by default. But
It does.
Okay. You can run any plugin, like if it's worth a damn, we'll run jQuery in no conflict, and we'll use its own variable sets for jQuery so that you don't run into those kind of issues and those kind of conflicts regardless of what, like I can have two different versions of jQuery running on the same exact site because one version of jQuery is using the default WordPress variable for jQuery and the other is like using J or JX or whatever variable I assign to it on the plugin that I put together, if that makes sense.
So what are you actually doing where you're running into problems with it?
Well, there was this slideshow that I had, and then when I was calling the jQuery from Google, it actually it was a conflict with the plugin of the slideshow. So
you needed to call the jQuery from Google?
the jQuery call from Google, I just didn't.
Did you try doing it with just the WordPress jQuery without using the Google one?
I'm not using the Google one. I just removed it altogether from the functions file, and it's fine. The only reason why it needs it is to run the, it's like a news website, so the only really feature they have is the slideshow. So it's not being needed, no, jQuery doesn't need to be used anywhere else on the site, basically.
Okay, so it's just loading on the front page.
Right, right.
I can speak to the same thing though. On my website, I've used the functions to swap out the default jQuery because I have a script I'm using for my little hover effects that's only compatible with jQuery, I think 1.8 and higher, and I think Google's default is 1.7 right now, and but jQuery itself is up to 1.10 already. I just to do this little custom script that I wanted to add, I couldn't use the WordPress default. But there is a right way to swap it out, at least a way that has been reliable for me, that you could swap it out in functions file and call the Google file correctly. And I think the one that I have was very similar to the one that you posted. I mean, I've heard people say that it's not best practice, but it functions, it works.
Yeah. The scenario where it's a really bad idea is if you have a distributed theme that you make and then you're doing it. You're loading like Google jQuery into a theme that you're putting out there, that's when it's messing up all the plugin authors. But if it's just for like one client or something, it really doesn't make that big of a difference.
You've tested it and you've seen and made sure that it's actually working okay.
Yeah.
And it's not an issue in that sense. But I agree with you. So you said you swap it out inside the functions at PHP, or do you use something like use Google Libraries?
No, it's a Google. I swap it out in functions. I basically deregister the default WordPress jQuery and then include the Google jQuery.
Okay.
So I'm deregistering one and then registering the other. So to make sure that it's clean and that there's only one that's active.
If I can recommend, you guys try out the Use Google Libraries plugin. It's like default on almost every installation I have. It's great from the perspective that what it does is it looks at what you're calling and it just automatically does a replace. So if you're calling version 110 or version 1.7 or version whatever, it will replace the specific version that you're calling to reference. So it will figure out what you're doing and then it will replace accordingly. Great for that perspective. And it'll do it for all of your pages. It doesn't necessarily have to be just for the main page. So if you
Believe it or not, Roots is like a highly distributed framework, right? That does swap out Google. For our WordPress's jQuery for Google's.
I think also with Roots, you have a different base, if that makes sense. Like you have a more of a developer base. Like nobody is downloading and installing Roots on their,
private blog.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like they're getting it from GitHub. They're loading it in. They're modifying it. They're doing stuff with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that doesn't really get too much of a conflict because of that.
Well, that's where I see it a lot is in starter themes, is that it's deregistering, or it's using the Google jQuery. It's deregistering and then loading the Google jQuery. And then I've also read that for caching purposes, it's better because it's already being cached on people's computers numerous times. And then I've seen it where it's like you can call your own jQuery from your server. If that's not available, you can then assign it to pull Google's. So it just seems like it's really complicated. Now I'm kind of hearing that there's just a variety of ways and you have to kind of use your best judgment depending on the project.
Well, for Foodbox, for example, like every environment is different and we don't know for sure if they're going to be calling jQuery correctly or not. And so there's not one standard that we can rely on, like to know that this plugin is going to run in any environment. So what we do is basically in the advanced tab, we have a deregistered the default food plugin, the Foodbox jQuery, optionally, if you need to. If you find that Foodbox is loading jQuery in addition to what you're already running, then you don't need it. You could turn it off, and that for us has been the most reliable way that we found to make sure it runs, but it doesn't cause problems.
Yeah, I've seen that on some other plugins too, that you can actually select not to have jQuery load,
I think in terms of plugin development, that's best practice, and I think more folks need to do better about that.
Yeah, I've included like an option in my plugins to disable not only JavaScript but the CSS as well.
Yeah,
for people
I've seen
who
that
want
too a lot.
like custom theme and do anything they want with it,
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Oh, I also do want to add that I noticed that that in your functions file, there's a lot more things being called. Like as far as like the previous next links, I used to see them actually in the single PHP file, but now it's being placed in functions along with the CSS and any fonts that you're pulling. Like if you're using Google fonts, like you're just calling that.
Well, I guess it depends on what theme,
Just
when it was like 2013 or something?
Yeah, especially in 2013, because I had a problem, like the previous things was not working right in the, on the index file, as well as I wanted it to use it in the my custom post type, and I could not get this to work at all. I was trying all these different ways. Finally, I just thought, well, let me just go into 2013 and see how they're calling it, and lo and behold, it was like magic. So it all worked, and as well as the comments form, I've noticed that's being placed into the functions file. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but
Well, optimally, you want it all in a plugin, right? Separately.
Yeah.
Because if you pack up and leave themes, then all your functions are left in that theme file, right?
Yeah, if like all of your custom post types are in functions.php, and you decide that you want to move and switch to a different theme, well, you're going to have to either copy all of those custom post types over.
No, the custom post type's not in the.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the idea of putting specific functionality like that in the functions.php that you want to stay with the site once you change out the design and theme, whatever design you have. The preferential side, I think, is putting whatever you're doing into a plugin that will remain after the site owner has changed feel,
These are like
design.
the basics, such as the previous and next post links.
Oh, that's interesting.
In functions, as well as how the comment form is being. If you go to a comments PHP, there's very little code where 3 years ago, I saw that your whole.
All more stuff moved away from the external files and moved into the functions.
Yes, correct. As far as
newer things.
Core WordPress, not.
But that's where
Not
you're skewing the
custom
line.
post
That's core WordPress. It's not
Right, a custom
the theme,
post
right?
type wouldn't necessarily, to me,
I think the thing is, core is not theme. Core is not plugin. If it's in the theme, if it's in the plugin, it's not considered core. I think what you're talking about is theme functionality is being stripped away, and that theme functionality is being put into, like the default theme functionality is being put into the functions.
Yeah.
PHP. Okay.
Correct.
So I guess the way the way that a lot of people would do it, maybe differently than you. I mean, myself, I just, years ago, I took one of the default themes and just completely stripped it apart and built my own theme, and then I just keep modifying it and making it better. Anytime I make a website, I'm starting at my same starting point for everything and just incorporating new things and modifying it, but keeping it very basic. And then Devin would be you use Root's theme now?
Yeah.
So he uses a theme framework, but you pretty much use the same every time that you do a website, or you try to stay consistent with it, more or less, so then you're pretty much used to what you're using.
Yeah.
Does everybody have a favorite framework besides Roots?
Bones.
I use Bones. Well, I sat through Steve Zingett's presentation at WordCamp LA this last weekend, and it was about underscores, which is the automatic theme framework.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say theme framework because it's a starter theme, meant for not building upon but taking apart and making your own.
It's like Roots.
And it looks really great. I mean, the thing is, if you want to use Bootstrap, you can integrate Bootstrap yourself. If you want to use Foundation, you can do that. And it's all super lightweight. So unlike Roots, it's super heavily nested with all this other stuff. Underscores are really light, and so I would like to try that if I had more time on.
It's a really nice file setup for that too.
Yeah,
I downloaded it to take a look at it, and it looks really clean. Like some of the other things, it's a little, to me, it's complicated. Open a file, you another file, another file, but I didn't find that in underscores.
So what does underscore actually give you then?
Flexibility, I guess, to choose your framework, to choose what kind of libraries you use, whereas Roots now, it's gotten so from a year ago, now they want you to use Grunt, it's got all this other stuff baked in. You're like, gosh, I don't really need all this extra stuff. That's how I'm starting to feel now. Whereas that, it's we don't give you anything, so build your own.
Yeah.
Or just put it in there.
I think that's the difference. I think with underscores, it takes you this far in the theme development, and then Roots really gives you all of this, and sometimes you have to back off and pull it down. That's why, for me, Bones, has been the middle ground.
It is the middle ground.
It takes a little bit further than underscores does, but not as far as Roots does.
Right.
I'll have to try the underscore though, because I really like starting from absolutely nothing, or just completely what I've done myself, because it's...
But then I get nervous, I'm forgetting something important. I'm like, is there something that's in the holy grail of WordPress that I didn't put in my theme? And that's why it's nice to start with some of these, but I want to make sure I have just that minimum, because I'll learn something to oh, that is supposed to be there. All my other.
Well, I haven't checked it out, but there's supposed to be one called Urban. There's the starter theme.
I've heard of it.
I've heard of that too.
It's based on Starkers, which is old. It is. I mean, but it's based on them, so.
Because it uses Sass.
There's also, you mentioned the HTML5 blank thing.
Yeah,
It just basically has like all the bare minimum files you need and
yeah, I'm not really, I don't know. It's okay, because I had used Reset, but they haven't kept it up to date. So, that's it, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. What's your name again, sir?
Mike.
Mike, would you like to share anything?
Sure. Welcome to the beginner portion of the program. I just have a couple questions. What's the easiest way to move a WordPress website from one host to another?
Backup buddy.
Backup buddy? Okay.
Yeah, and also, somebody just mentioned WP All Import. Chris did she couldn't make it tonight, but I said she should demo it because it looks awesome. Have you used it, man?
I haven't yet.
Is it all import?
It's called WP All Import.
Sure, was it Migrate?
No, today was Migrate Pro.
Migrate DB
Oh, yeah.
Pro. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
WP,
I don't know the difference really, but
And also, WP Clone is the one that I normally use. It's extremely simple.
Nice.
If you are moving your website from a cPanel hosting company to another, it's even easier. You just go into the backup option and download the data and the MySQL database, and you just go into the new account and then upload it, boom, done. So it's basically, I do it all the time. I literally take a base cPanel setup that I use. And if I'm going to a new host with it, I just basically do an upload into the cPanel backup option, and then you have to go into PHP MySQL or something like that to kind of modify some fields in there, like the domain and such. But once you do that, it's pretty easy. So you
from cPanel to cPanel?
Yeah, cPanel. Well, cPanel to cPanel is trivial because you literally are just down. You can literally take the backup and then have the host either automatically import it for you, which most will do for free, or you can use the backup features within cPanel. I was actually going to do that as an optional talk today about how to move WordPress sites if you're at cPanel host, because it's so easy. No one knows about it, it seems. But you literally, I just did it tonight. Before I came here, I spent an hour relearning how to do it. You simply go into backup, download the home directory, download the database on your computer, and that's your backup. And then you can go to any host in the world and then upload it, bada boom, done.
And that will transfer over the domain name and stuff in the database?
It'll literally transfer every single thing from that website into a new cPanel setup. But you may have to do some DNS stuff and maybe a little PHP, MySQL, depending on what you're doing. But you can use that as well. If both cPanel hosts are for the same domain name, then you can just use the backup option, download it, 5 minutes, upload it, 5 minutes, done. You don't have to use WP Clone or any of that stuff.
Okay. And the other thing is child themes. Yes? No?
Yes.
Yes? Yes?
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, good.
The reason why, if you think of it from a very logical standpoint, you want the themes that you're installing to be updatable. But at the same time, you still want the flexibility to modify things as you need to. When you don't use a child theme and you make modification changes to your theme, if you do have a theme that updates, either from the repository or from a premium service or whatever the case is, all those modifications you made are wiped out. So child theming, by its very definition, is designed to help you do that. Because the parent theme still gets updated, it still gets all its updates, security releases, anything that it has, while at the same time your child theme has all of your modifications. And most of the child themes that I do are like 1 file, 2 files at the most, because I maybe only need to change one thing, and so I'm only replacing that one file that I need modifications made to. Everything else just borrows from the original parent theme. Very simple.
Yeah, a lot of people get confused by child themes. I remember when they first were being talked about in 2009, 2010. I was like, what? Who would ever want to do that? And it was like, now it's normal, I guess.
Do you recommend doing that even with something as bare bones as we were just talking about?
Underscores? No, those are started.
Those are started.
So essentially, you're gonna provide that to somebody, and it should be child theme compatible.
Right. Like, if I'm building from that, like let's say I've already flushed out my design and I'm just custom building a theme, am I going rogue by not building a child theme, or can I just?
I think if you're a developer and you're making a lot of websites, people, starting with a certain theme, I played around with doing child themes for a while, and it kind of adds a lot of extra work to the process, and it makes things a little bit confusing because you're not sure where the CSS is for modifying a certain thing. So I just decided to not use them and just have my own one custom theme. But if you were taking a theme that somebody else made and you were modifying it, then in that case, definitely
Like a use Woo theme or something like that, some premium theme that's already there. That's okay.
And honestly, a lot of the theme marketplaces now, they've designed their themes with the thought in mind that they are parent themes.
Right.
Like if you look at, especially like WP Explorer, for example, all their sites are so minimalist. Like, all their themes are so minimalist, like basically on purpose.
Right.
Say we know that you want to make this your own, so here's a really great, clean, nice-looking parent theme that you can install by yourself, and it'll work. Or just child theme it, and then you could just go nuts with it, But like Leon said, what you'll have is you'll have a whole set of CSS rules that are getting called, and then in the child theme, they're getting called again and getting overridden. Right. And that's where some of the bloat can happen, some of the slowness can happen. By its nature, it's going to be a little bit bloated. But nevertheless, like Michael said, it's the best way to keep that developed theme clean and updatable.
And keeping in mind that just because a theme is considered a starter theme doesn't necessarily mean that you can't child theme. Underscore is child themeable. There's many starter themes and many different frameworks that are child themeable. That's just sort of a default nowadays for doing that kind of stuff. Because like in your idea, what you said, well, if I don't want to necessarily use it as a starter theme, but I want to build on top of it, they know that you want to do that. And because child theming is just by nature part of WordPress, and they're using the best practices already, so by very definition, you'll be able to use child theme for it.
I also think, like for my clients, when I give estimates, I give 3 options. So one of them is a pre-designed theme. I mean, it's based on their budget if they don't want something custom. And then also, you could factor in that a child theme is going to save you time, and maybe they do want something custom. I'm kind of over pre-designed themes. I'm like so tired of working with them because it's someone else's code. It's just to have to filter through it if they want changes. So I think child themes come in great for when clients have a certain amount of budget, and it helps you save the amount of work that you have to do. And if they want something completely custom, a child theme just isn't going to work for them, then they have a choice of going with a higher package. That's just my thought on that.
I just became aware of a plugin. I haven't tested it. Really don't know the extent of it, but it kind of does what a child theme does, but you just put all your, I guess the way it was represented to me, you put your CSS in there, so all your CSS customization is transportable when the theme's upgraded. I actually was curious about it, using it for my child themes, because every once in a while those get upgraded too, and I gotta redo all that stuff,
Keep in mind that your child theme itself won't get upgraded, just the parent theme will get upgraded?
Well, sometimes I'm in the Genesis framework, and usually they'll come in with upgrades with the child themes, and that you can just plug into the PHP.
All the premium themes for Genesis are all child themes, basically. Because Genesis is the framework, and you don't build on top of that, so anything that's themed is a child theme.
I don't remember if this was ever done, but I remember there was a discussion about grandchildren. Like this was an actual discussion. I'll have to look it up, but I remember there was a discussion about can you...
A really simple thing that does that is Jetpack, actually. Jetpack has what they call custom CSS. Of course, it has a bunch of other things as well, but all it really does is it adds another CSS file as late as possible into your header, so that whatever you write in there overrides your child theme or your Genesis framework or whatever. So, but it just means another CSS sheet is being called in addition to what you already have, which is a lot.
So just starting out, would Genesis be a good platform for somebody just starting out?
Sure. It's up for grabs. Yeah.
I would try it and see how you like it.
Chris Lehman just wrote an article on comparing two themes, so.
I think it's okay. I don't know. Depends on what I think really what comes down to is the client's needs. That, to me, I'm just more about what is the client looking for. If Genesis can fulfill those needs, great. If not, I don't know, that's just...
I think it depends on the child theme, because Genesis is not a theme by itself. This is where you get into semantics.
Yeah.
Some people argue about but most people call Genesis a framework because it's not really going to do anything to make your site look good at all if you just install it by itself. And if you buy a child theme that really leverages Genesis really well, then it can take you a long ways into customizing your site. But a lot of child themes are almost what I would call like a skin instead of a theme, really. They're just throwing colors onto the page and changing the layouts a little bit and not giving you a ton of options.
But you can do functionalities though with child theme. That's the point of it. You can modify entire files and structures, and you can add stuff to your functions.php to add functionality to the child theme that doesn't necessarily exist in the parent.
It sounded like you were talking about getting started with themes.
Yeah, I think so. Also, Genesis has a lot of their themes now are built on responsive, so I mean that's a good thing to just have out of the box.
Another one that I've heard a lot of people rave about is called Headway, and I tried it out a little bit. If Ansel was here, he'd rave about it. But
I had like the first version of that when it came out.
Yeah, it's really good for doing drag and drop type of designing, basically, and it's also responsive and supposedly really lightweight in terms of the code it actually produces. So it seems to have all the right features.
Bootstrap is supposed to be pretty good too.
That's a JavaScript framework, basically, for like a design framework, if that makes sense. Like you're talking about your CSS, your JavaScript, like you can have Bootstrap and other things. And different themes will use Bootstrap as part of their framework design, like Roots and others. So.
Does anyone use Startbox?
I have never heard of that one.
Really?
Yeah.
The company, the agency, the owner was at WordCamp San Francisco as part of the panel.
Nice.
Yeah. I looked into Startbox. I haven't used it, but I was just wondering.
Real quick, to answer the question about grandchildren themes, you can do nested layers of themes so when you build a grandchild theme, or when you build a child theme, you have to, in your styles.css, you have to, list an import URL for whatever it is that you're importing in. So in this case, that you're importing in the theme that you're templating from, and where you're borrowing everything, all your styles from. In this case, you can do it, but you have to have both the original parent style CSS imported, as well as the child style CSS imported. In terms of
do an add import URL to each of them.
Yes. But the problem is that the template that it's basing off of is still the parent. So I'm not sure if functionality transfers over, but what you're saying in terms of it just being like all they did in the child theme is modify the CSS, then you can import both the child theme and the parent theme into a grandchild theme with the template still being the original parent theme, and that will give you grandchild theme-like functionality.
There's a ton of Genesis themes that are just a style sheet.
And so that's perfect for that kind of stuff. Like you can have your own grandchild theme that is based off of both the Genesis framework and the child theme that you've purchased from them.
Also, just really quick, Startbox is free. Genesis you have to buy, and then you purchase the themes. Startbox it's completely free, and then you can build your own theme or child theme, or purchase what they already have.
Thanks for sharing. You want to share something, Ron?
Yeah, I haven't been doing any coding really, other than maintenance stuff lately, so that's been nice actually. So I've just been working on the people and content part of my various blogs. Continuing the lawsuit with the spammer that spammed my website. Now exhausted to $10,000 of my insurance deductible, so that's now that's out of the way. And it's Ansel that referred me a guy who's an expert in our lawsuit, a guy named Peter Kent, wrote a bunch of For Dummies books on SEO and so forth. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, there was a guy that was spamming my sites, and turned out he was an attorney. And I wrote him a cease and desist letter, and it got nasty. I reported him to the state bar. He tried to shake us down for libel, and ultimately sued us. So crazy world.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, the expert has found that to put something like 97,000 spam comments out there, all kind of link back spam. So
Because he's a lawyer, so he's legal, right?
he was a lawyer. He's been a lawyer for like 4 months.
You can't do that.
He needs to pay that school bill.
You can't do that. You can't comments, man. Someone said.
Can you put comment spam? Well, the websites aren't going to like it.
I feel bad for them.
If you're an attorney, there's a whole bunch of extra regulations, ethical regulations about how they can advertise.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, you know, if you're doing it, are you gonna get sued? Probably not. You might get a cease and desist letter. I know that Google, or not Google, but Twitter sued some of the software makers that were creating different types of apps and software.
So it wasn't like gibberish and then links coming back to his site. It was
Oh yeah, no, there were links coming back to his site, and with just nonsensical type of comments that were just, you know, fouling up the blog posts on my site.
If you ever want to have fun, if you guys have an Akismet installed on your system, go to comments and then click under spam and just read some of the shit that comes out. It's freaking hilarious. It's fun. Before you trash it, obviously you're gonna trash it. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's interesting stuff. Have you given any thought to doing a legal talk at one of the WordCamps?
Yeah, I have at times. I haven't gotten serious about it, but I think there's some interesting topics, both in that spamming and also regarding copyright. There's been a lot of shakedown type of lawsuits. I've even heard of, I think Ansel told me, heard of a situation where, you know, somebody used Creative Commons to get photos, and then the photographer switched it from Creative Commons to all rights reserved, and then sued the people who used it when it was Creative Commons, and they didn't have proof.
Probably you guys don't know, Will was an attorney, so he has some interesting conversations to see about the kind of stuff that you do online and the kind of stuff that you experienced.
So if you do use Creative Commons, take a screenshot of the license.
Save it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
my
you so
wife's
much.
waiting for me
Not a problem.
outside.
No problem. All right. What's your name, brother?
Oh, I'm Andrew. Hi,
Andrew?
this is my first time. I came because of Devin. I met him up in WordCamp SF. So yeah, hi everybody. I guess what have I been thinking? Am I just sharing what I've been doing with WordPress?
Yeah, what you've been working on.
What I've been working on. I got a really great opportunity just this week to work with Modern Tribe. If you guys have heard of them, they make an event plugin. So I'm doing a kind of a user interface for the responsive version of the week view. So that's pretty fun. Otherwise, I do a lot of client work, which is also cool. I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
I know WP Engine is all like the steez right now, and I'm still of a like Media Temple grid server account. It seems nice, and I'm just not convinced I want to spend all this extra money on WP Engine, although it seems to be like what I should do, and everybody's strong arming me to do it. Anybody can throw that to the forum of what people think.
Have you had problems with Media Temple? Like, what kind of issues have you experienced?
Well, I mean, like years ago, I had a malware issue, but since then it's been rock solid. Media Temple's rock solid. But here's what I like. I like that the thing is updating WordPress constantly for me, and it's constantly making backups, and it's just kind of working kind of in this back end, and I don't have to worry about it. So I was just curious if anybody could advocate for its value.
Well, they host our group's website.
Yeah, sure.
They volunteer.
WP Engine.
WP Engine. does,
Okay.
yeah. So they have helped us out with that. And to be honest with you, that's my first time ever dealing with the WP Engine system in the dashboard and the backend.
Right.
So all my stuff is done personally and business-wise is done elsewhere. But I've had good experiences with it. One of the things I do like. Anybody else here use WP Engine? You use WP Engine? WP Engine? Okay. What I do like is they do have Git access to their stuff, which is nice.
And there's that too, yeah.
Exactly. And you have they also have staging environments built in, so that's another nice.
It seems premium, but it's like really premium. It's like, wow, I'm going from $40 a month for 100 sites to $40 per site. You know what I mean? It's kind of a...
I'd say Media Temple, it's gotten a little faster than what I've noticed in the last couple of months. I don't know if they've been upgrading.
You have a grid server as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I won a free year of hosting actually.
Nice.
Our WordPress 10th anniversary.
Yeah.
But I had, we have like grid service through Climate, and they have like 100 sites on their grid. I think that's like close to the max. I think they're only allowed 100.
Yeah.
And I mean, they seem to be running just fine. Definitely wouldn't want to pay $29 per one of those sites on, but I do run a WP Engine as well for my WordPress site, and I mean it's great, you know, but it's definitely premium. So
it really depends on what you need, whether you're talking about speed or whether you're talking about convenience. If you want convenience for a hosting company, then cPanel is really the best of all things in terms of all the things you can do. Media Temple is really watered down, almost skeleton control panel. When you go into a cPanel, you're suddenly overloaded with things you can do, statistics and the ability to manage mail easier and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Sure.
So if you really like the convenience of the hosting control panels, then WHM and cPanel is the low-cost way to go. You know, $5 a month sort of approach, and you can do that with HostGator or any other. But if your concentration is on speed, then you have a couple of choices, and WP Engine is really good about that because they optimize for the WordPress specifically caching. But if you just want raw speed and you want to pay a few dollars a month, then there's SSD. Hosting is inexpensive, and solid-state drives are becoming more plentiful. The big Walmart hosts, GoDaddy, HostGator, they can't afford them. They never will be. So they will always have the network drives, which are always going to be slower. So there's smaller hosts like A2 Hosting uses SSD drives. Just it's a different world because the difference is that, and WP Engine doesn't yet, but they do other things that are just as good. But the advantage of an SSD drive host is that your database speed is infinitely faster. So if you have a 500 megabyte size database on your website, then you're going to see with an SSD shared hosting plan that might cost you $5 is going to be infinitely faster than a plan that costs 10 times more at one of the network drive hosting companies, like HostGator and even Media Temple to a certain extent, because I have a Media Temple account too. And so you can put lots of accounts on them, which is good. There's lots of memory, but so you really got to decide what you want. If your target market is gross speed because your databases are pretty big, because you're doing big time social media, then you can go with some low-cost SSD. If you're looking for WordPress management, where you don't want to mess around with stuff, but you still want good speed, then you're looking at WP Engine or Pagely or some of the other services. Personally, I think they're a flip of a coin, because many of them, I don't know if you've used any other services.
I've used Media Temple, I've used WP Engine, I've never used an SSD one, but I have that free account that
so you can play with sometime just to demonstrate. Put a monster database on there and run stuff, and you'll see what I mean. But there's a couple of other managed hosting companies that do that. So it's about whether you want super fast database speed or do you want someone to manage your WordPress stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and the question that you really got to ask yourself is, do I need to move?
Right.
Like if you're good, then you're talking about all of the expense, time, and energy spent on moving all of your clients off of it. Unless you actually, if you don't have a need to move, if you don't have a need for something else, then by all means, stay where you're at.
And I'm curious about new clients, am I doing them a disservice by not putting them on something new? Obviously, like with my old stuff, yeah, they seem all set, no one knows the difference in Media Temple.
But therein lies the difference. Is there your question is, am I doing them a disservice?
Right.
Are there complaints from your existing client bases that it's an issue?
Yeah, I guess generally not. So
exactly.
Yeah.
If you were telling me that, dude, I am on GoDaddy and I've got like 1,000 sites going on, and all my clients are calling me up and telling me that their site's going slow as crap and everything else, then I would say yes, you're doing your clients a disservice by doing that. But if they're loving what you're doing, and it keeps your costs low, then by all means stick with what you got. I like Devin's idea for what he's talking about, which is, if you have your own site, if you have your business site that you want a lot of traffic, you want to increase business and everything else, and you want to put them on WP Engine, for example, then put your own site on WP Engine and offer it to your clients if that's something that they want to do.
Right. So give them like
explain to them, hey, it costs X amount for SSD, or X amount for Media Temple DV, or X amount for WP Engine, and let them choose.
Right.
Right.
Like right now I have a plugin in there for like Dropbox auto backup, and I have a couple plugins there for the auto upgrades, and I feel like, am I doing this kind of janky? Because WP Engine can do all that, but yeah.
We've all been doing it janky for a long time. I don't consider it janky.
And as far as updating to like WordPress and the plugins with a lot of client sites, since I've started using like Infinite WP, it has like it's a piece of cake now.
Infinite WP is a plugin that
it's got a plugin too, but it's a standalone application that you can install just about anywhere.
Okay.
And you can punch a bunch of sites into it, and it'll tell you when a site is needing a core update or a plugin update.
It's like WP Manage.
Yeah, it's exactly like WP Manage.
Or Manage, I would do it backwards.
Yeah, and you can even install plugins right from one central dashboard. You can log directly into the admin from their dashboard. And it just keeps everything nice and simple.
And I can tell you, you can install. You don't need like heavy duty stuff for Infinite. If you want, you can install it on your Media Temple. It'll install just fine.
Okay, cool.
I remember because I did that when they first launched, because I still had a Media Temple account from back in the day before I started using AWS, and it'll work just fine.
Okay.
So
cool. Is there a point where it would bog down Infinite WP? Like, let's say you had 200 sites on there.
You should use it. You probably should use it, or if you do use it, make sure that you're running Infinite WP on its own server by itself with a very powerful component piece to it.
Yeah, or sign up for Managed WP.
Or sign up for Managed WP. We met.
I got both.
We met Vladimir the other day.
Yeah, I missed that.
That was a lot of fun. Vladimir is the owner, CEO of Managed WP. He came down to San Diego. A bunch of us went out to a bar with him. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's one of those situations where there's many different ways of doing it, and it's not janky when you don't have issues. When your clients aren't coming to you complaining about shit, and you're talking about a lot of cost and a lot of effort. Now that doesn't mean that you shouldn't offer it to your clients as an option.
Sure.
But don't purposely put yourself on that.
Totally. Well, thanks for feedback.
No problem. All right. I know it's running a little late, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump up on the thing there. The reason why my computer was slowing down before is because I have a bunch of other background stuff running, and when I created that virtual machine on this machine, all those other processes decided to slow down. So I apologize. I will be sorry, Devin, I will upload your plugin on here while I'm doing my presentation.
All right.
So, real quick, I'll try to be as quick as I can for you guys. This is my first time actually showing this in front of a large group. So I apologize if there's any site fails or anything like that. What I'm going to basically attempt to do is show you guys the kind of stuff that I've been playing around with and working in My day job, a lot of you guys know I do work for Spayor. So I do a lot of server work, I do a lot of development work in Rails, and WordPress for me is both, I still do client work on WordPress, big time client work, like the sites that need like a lot of traffic hitting them and so forth. But I've also been able to have a lot of fun bringing a lot of the stuff that I've learned doing Rails development and so forth into the WordPress world. And one of the things that I put together about a month or two ago is something called WP Chef. For those of you that don't know what Chef is, it's basically a Ruby-based deployment framework. So if you guys like building servers, but you don't want to keep building servers all the time, WP Chef will build the servers for you. I have detailed instructions down here in the actual Git repository on how to do it. Right now I have four actual cookbooks. Now the way that Chef works is you have cookbooks associated with your actual deployment, and those cookbooks have recipes inside of them. Very, artsy chef. I was going to wear a chef hat today. But the idea here is, thanks, move the camera. The idea here is that you're essentially programmatically creating machines, programmatically creating servers. And by doing that, you can essentially deploy as many sites, as many different ways, and as many different configurations as you want to. If a site has any issues or problems, you just basically deploy a new one, migrate everything over, turn the old site off. Simple as that. The support so far that I've tested out, it supports both VirtualBox locally, and it also supports AWS. That's what I've been using. That's what I use for everything that I deploy, personally and business-wise. It does also have support for Rackspace. I'm still finishing it out, and I'll let you guys know as soon as that's deployed out. And it'll have VMware support as well, as soon as I get a chance to finally go through testing the VMware provider. For those of you guys that don't know what Vagrant is nothing more than a command line application that allows you to interact with other APIs. It allows you to interact with VirtualBox's API. It allows you to interact with AWS's API and do things on those APIs that deal with deploying servers and so forth. So basically, here's kind of how this whole system works. You go through the process, you download Vagrant, you clone the WP Chef repository, and when you clone the repository, you can clone it into wordimpress.com folder, you can clone it into whatever file folder you want, you can save all your configurations into your own Git repository if you want. The two things that you might want to do if you're going to deploy it to AWS is install the Vagrant AWS plugin as well as the Vagrant AWS Info plugin. That was originally what I set out. You don't need that anymore because, as I'll show you here, it will tell you what your address is at the end of your actual run through. So what I did here. Is this supposed to be there? Oh, my bad. Sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. Let me pull that up real quick. So what I'm going to show you guys real quick is just very simply how I deploy servers. I've used a lot of Chef scripts for deploying WordPress servers in the past. A lot of them were sort of hand-jiggered and personalized. And what I'm trying to do with WP Chef is basically just kind of automate that process. Let me go ahead and attack display. And my hope is that, my hope is that you'll play around with it, and if anything, it will be something to inspire you to maybe do, your own deployments, to test this out. The main reason I did it, though, was to really simplify my deployment techniques. You guys have probably seen I've done talks at WordCamps about using AWS for WordPress. A lot of times those talks take a long time because there's a lot of installation, there's a lot of stuff, and a lot of setup that needs to be done. So here is WP Chef. Here's all of the instructional stuff. There are currently 3 working cookbooks available on WP Chef. There's an Apache cookbook, there's an Nginx cookbook, and a really fun one, which I've posted articles about, is the Redis cookbook. Like I said before, you're going to install Vagrant. You're going to have Ruby on your application. It will work on Windows. It will work on Mac. It's cross-platform. Vagrant is cross-platform. Thus, WP Chef is cross-platform. You're going to copy one of the 3 Vagrant files that are available, either the .redis, the .nginx, or the .apache, and you're just going to rename that to the Vagrant file for that specific folder. A couple of things that you're going to want to do for deployment to AWS is you're going to want to have to get an AWS access key. You're going to want to get a secret key. You're going to want to create a key pair. Never remember how to do all that stuff. You create a key pair in AWS, and also you're going to want to put that key pair somewhere in your system path, so that the Vagrant can go out and actually look for it and implement it and install it. A couple of other things too. For Rackspace, I haven't supported that just yet, so I'll let you know as soon as I got that working pretty well. For the Nginx and the Redis implementation, I only have one password set, and I've actually done some changes to fix that. I'll show you guys in a minute. And then all you do after that is you go into the folder, you say Vagrant up, like I did with Devin, and boom, it creates a server in seconds. Make sure that whatever, it's using VirtualBox, so make sure that whatever machine you have running doesn't also have other VMs running in the background at the same time, otherwise that will slow down your machine, or that you have enough RAM to be able to handle that. The demonstration I'm going to do for you guys though is this AWS deployment piece right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the Vagrant file that I have for my personal site, michaelbassos.com. I've destroyed the .vagrant file. It doesn't destroy the server. The server's still up online and still good to go. This is just sort of my playing around with this specific component piece. Here is kind of what the Vagrant file looks like. I'm not going to scroll up to show you guys my passkeys, but everything else is pretty much kind of the same. If you were deploying this locally through VirtualBox, it would give you a local host address of 8,000. So you would be going to localhost:8000, and boom, there's your WordPress site. You build it in, you do it, everything's good to go. If you're doing this remotely, it will actually get, if you're doing this on AWS, it will actually give you what actual address that you have to go to. Here's all the chef recipes that I've included into this specific Vagrant recipe for the Redis implementation. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see, I actually just implemented this today. You'll see here you have a database host, which in this case is localhost for the actual server that's being created. WordPress DB, a database name, a database user, as well as a actual server root password. The reason why I implemented these other extra options is because I want to be able to have people deploy their WordPress installations not just locally, but also to RDS. And in order for you to do that without getting into the server and manipulating and changing things, this is the implementation that I was able to do to have you just basically fill these in, like you fill in your host for RDS.
A little bit.
Oh,
yeah, cut off.
There you go. So in this case, you can see here that you would fill in, instead of localhost, you would put your RDS database host, which I highly recommend if you're going to deploy this as a micro instance. By default, I have it set here as an M1 small on Amazon, but if you're planning on saving money and you want to deploy this as a micro instance, Redis can handle that. But your database will suffer because it's a very small server with 256 megabytes of memory. So keep in mind that if you're going to deploy this application, or if you're going to deploy WordPress using this onto a micro, make sure that you're also using RDS. Both a micro instance on Amazon and an RDS instance are both free for the first year that you have hosting. So this is perfect testing. You can play around with it. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. Here is where you would basically put the host for RDS, the database name for RDS, the database user for RDS, and the RDS password. The RDS password will basically become your default password for your entire server system. So with that set, I'm going to deploy. So I'm going to go in. All right. Let's see. I'm going to go into. All right. So I'm in my michaelbassos.com WP Chef folder, right? Again, like I said, I've removed the .vagrant file, so it's not going to affect my physical server that's up online right now. So I want to just deploy to that same AWS that same AWS account that I have michaelbassos.com hosted on. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do Vagrant up, but instead Vagrant up does it locally. Instead of doing it locally, I'm going to do provider AWS. All right, and what it's going to do is it's basically, you can see here what it's doing. It's pulling the type of instance. In this case, I'm calling out a T1 micro. I actually have a specific AMI picked for for WP Chef that already has Chef and already has RVM and Ruby installed inside of it. So that's already going to work out of the box. It's also, I can also pick what region I want it to be installed. So if it's Sydney, I can put it down as Sydney, as the Sydney zone region and so forth. And then it picks out whatever key pair I actually want for it. Did this test a little earlier, and it actually went a little bit faster than this, but I'll let it kind of go through. While I'm letting this kind of go through, you're going to see as it processes what it's actually doing. What it's doing is it's basically taking this whole cookbook for Nginx Redis, and it's pulling it into that server. It's sending everything over to that server, pre-built, pre-configured, so that it can start creating that specific instance. While this is running, I'm going to pull this up real quick.
Can you run it in like some type of verbose so that you can see what it's doing?
It's got to run verbose. It's just for some reason the connection is really slow right now. I just ran it a little while ago. It was perfectly fine, so we'll see how it works. Yeah, so see it's doing rsync, so it's copying all of the stuff over into the Vagrant folder of the server, and you can see here all of the actual chef recipes that I have for this specific piece. The only ones, the way that Chef works is I basically just download the recipe. I set it up in here. Technically speaking, you wouldn't do that, but I did it for ease of use. Anybody that wants to just deploy it without any other complicated stuff can just do what I just did and deploy the server however they need to. And I'll make sure that I keep these chef recipes updated as new ones come out. The only ones that I really updated though were the WordPress recipe, which is default. It does come with ops code. The one that's in the chef, you can see here, the green is all of the chef stuff processing right now. So on the WordPress, the actual WordPress chef recipe is the default one that comes on opscode.com. What I did is I modified it because the default WordPress chef recipe uses Apache. I wanted it to use Nginx. I wanted it to use Redis. So I've sort of forked that specific recipe to start doing all the things that I needed it to do. The other thing that I also kind of modified, but I'm going to fix down the line, is I modified the Nginx, the HTTP conf for Nginx, specifically in this case to handle the Redis specific pieces. I'll clean all this stuff up eventually and throw everything in the WordPress piece, or I may just create a separate recipe that just borrows from everything down the line. But very simply put, kind of just give you guys a quick breakdown of what this recipe looks like. It's very simple. Here are all my variables. These are all my attributes, default attributes. This is where all the stuff that I was showing you guys before, where it was pulling from the database user, database host, and so forth, are being pulled in and nodes are being created for it, variables. Here is my actual chef recipe for WordPress, and you can see it's still processing. This is actually happening on the AWS server right now. So that kind of gives you an idea of how quickly this is actually building out a physical server online as we speak. And then if I go through here, kind of just gives you guys a quick overview. It's choosing whether or not it's EC2 based. It's telling me what it is that I'm going to be getting back. Some of this stuff you guys might recognize. Like in this case, it's going out and it's grabbing the latest WordPress copy. Like very simple, it's very simple to read and understand when you look at this, what it is that it's actually doing. It's checking to make sure that the latest WordPress copy is actually correct and properly downloaded. It's setting permissions. Something that I do have to fix is going to be permission settings for Nginx. Because I forked everything over to Nginx, I still have a permissions issue that I have to fix, but you can actually log into the server and just run a chown and it fixes all that. I just basically went in and created an ERB template for it, so it will install with every installation. And let me go check back on here. Okay, so now this is done. So now that this is done, what we're going to do here is there's a link right here, which you guys can't see. Pull this up. Okay, you guys see this EC2 link that's right here, that's referenced? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open it up. I think it's Chrome that's crashing on me right now. All right, so here is now a working installation of WordPress with Redis running online. Now, what's cool about this? Seems like much, right? Well, remember I mentioned before there is an issue that I'm trying to resolve right now, which is the permissions issue. So before you can install plugins, before you can install, the reason why I was trying to set the permission stuff was because there is an issue with permissions right now that I'm still working on fixing. But if I want to get into the server, all I have to do is do vagrant SSH, and that SSHs me directly into that server that I just created. This 23.21.37.196. I go to, and all I really have to do is just do a chown, sudo, and all of this stuff is in the instructions for the time being. So sudo chown www.data:/w.data, and then var www. And then all this is doing is saying grant all permissions to the Nginx user, which in this case is www.data. This will be fixed by the end of the month. I just haven't had time to fix it. That's it. So now I can go in here. I can install WordPress. I can do all that stuff without setting that. That only prevents me from, without doing that, it only prevents me from installing plugins, installing themes, all the fun stuff that you would want to do with WordPress. All right, so I can create a test WordPress installation right here. Create all my fun stuff, add this right here, and now I've created a WordPress installation. Boom, right? Seems easy enough. Here's the fun part. Here's the part that took me a while to figure out, and one of the reasons why this is so important, such a valuable piece for me at least nowadays. I've basically made it hostname agnostic. So it doesn't matter whether I use the EC2 DNS address or whether I go directly to the IP address, WordPress will run regardless.
Now you did that through the configuration of your WP config file?
Yes.
It probably would have been good to show that on the screen too, because it's something I always forget about. But it's a really cool thing for people to know.
Yeah, so in your WP config template that I showed you guys earlier, there's a little bit of code that I have here. This define home and define WP site URL. What it's doing here is it's asking the server for its HTTP host, its domain. What is the domain that the server is running? Is the host the IP address? Is the host michaelvassos.com? Is the host whatever? And whatever the host is, it assigns that as your URL. So I can go in here and I can click on links and click on stuff, and it will take me to the URL maintaining that host as the main URL of my WordPress site. So this is where it gets fun. I can go into, who here knows what Meldium is? Okay, Meldium is a really cool application that lets you store stuff, like store access to different sites and different components. It's totally legit. They're not stealing your passwords or anything like that. It's got funding from a lot of really valuable resources, but it's great for doing stuff like this where you quickly pull up stuff that you need to pull up. So in this case, I'm going to go into my Route 53. I'm going to pick a random domain that I don't really use as much anymore. And I'm going to just change the IP address to the one that you guys just saw me create 2 seconds ago. I say record, and I go to, needs to do a DNS refresh for a second. You do a lot faster than this. Okay. Anyway, what this will do is basically it'll map that IP address to Vassos.me. It may take a minute or two for it to actually hit or not. Let me pull up. Okay, so this is the same WordPress site that I set up before. I can go into here, WP admin. I can log in just like before. I can go in and I can install plugins.
Michael, what are your settings? What is the domain? What are you doing in your settings? Are you typing in, are you actually entering the domain name in the settings field general area? You have to do that?
What do you mean?
In settings general.
No, it bases it off of whatever the host name is.
So you don't, so you leave it blank.
You leave it blank. Like once this DNS processes, bastos.me should, once the DNS goes through, the server will know to specifically reference this as bastos.me. So you never have to reference the IP address anymore if you don't want to. You never have to reference that EC2 address anymore. But the reason why I do it this way is because I can easily swap between servers. I can literally create a brand new server for michaelbastos.com, use a service or a tool to just migrate everything over into this IP-specific installation, and then swap out the end names, and boom, it all works.
I just wanted to demonstrate, if you go to settings general, what do you have entered there?
So it's just defaulting it based off of whatever the actual host name is.
Right.
That's what that little bit of code allowed you to do. Let me just double check this one more time.
What would happen if you routed multiple domain names to that IP address?
You can. It would just reference those specific addresses as the actual domain of the site.
How would that affect your SEO?
I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, it's doable and it's possible. And if you don't like it, if you want it to just be the specific domain, you can modify that. That's easy enough to do.
Okay.
But does that all kind of make sense? How this works specifically? How it's implemented?
I get it all.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to kind of show you guys. The reason why I was trying to get this thing referenced over. In fact, let me check my phone.
Yeah, but then we believe you.
It's a joke.
Try Firefox.
Good point. Well, it's all the same DNS.
Not even to show your WordPress ideas website that you threw
I
up?
will. I'll show it at the very end. It was literally like a bet. It was like this would be interesting. Okay, so you guys can see here, bastos.me is already migrated to DNS. It's just for some reason my personal machine is caching this DNS improperly. So, and it's going straight to michaelbastos.com, which is what it was originally set to in the first place. So, we all see here, it's actually transitioned over to the new server. It's bastos.me, and I click on Hello World. It's going to the Hello World address with the bastos.me host name in the front. The reason why I did this is to have fun with, let's take the server down. All right, we're going to go to blitz.io. I already set up the actual domain for this, so we can just kind of do it in 2 seconds. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start a test. And in this test, we're going to test Redis. That's the whole reason why I built the Redis piece in the first place, right? How much can it handle? How many users can it handle in 60 seconds, in an hour, or whatever time frame I allot for it? What I really love about blitz.io is the ability to just be able to modify things. So I can set it to 1,000 users if I want to, which is going to take the site down because keep in mind, this is set to 1,000 users in 1 minute. Which, Chrome is not playing nice with me today. This is set to 1,000 users in 1 minute. So in layman's terms, this is like millions of people. If millions of people were hitting your site on a daily basis, is the kind of functionality that we're looking for here. It's looking for timeouts. It's looking for pretty much everything. So I'm going to set it to bastos.me. I'm going to set it to something a little bit less, 500, that I know for a fact that will most likely hold at 500 users. But again, 1 to 500 users in 1 minute. And bastos.me is already preset. If you ever want to use blitz.io, you have to set your DNS with a text DNS so that they know that you're not just taking somebody's site down. Right? They want to know that you're actually the owner of the site before they let you take your own site down. So we're going to run a test. Keep in mind that this is the server we just created nearly 2 minutes ago. DNS has already been changed, so it already knows what to look for. This is a brand new WordPress installation. Response times are a little higher than I expected. I actually expected it to be a little lower than that, but still 0 errors, 0 timeouts. We're at 20, so we started at 20 milliseconds. We went up and down a little bit. We're at 40 milliseconds right now. Keeping in mind that now we're at almost 300 users hitting the site, and this is less than a minute. We're at 200 millisecond response time. It's a little much. This literally like becomes different depending on how and when you run it. So it's a lot of fun to try out. So now we're reaching 500 milliseconds. All right. So let's take a look at the report and see what it did for us.
Awesome.
The Rust generated 12,146 successful hits in 60 seconds. That's roughly 96 megabytes transferred, so in terms of your AWS costs, that's not much. The average hits were 201 hits per second. Translates to about 17,384 hits a day. That means that ranky little old server that we just created can handle 17 million hits a day, accordingly.
Did you do it against your non-Redis site, and how did it compare?
Surprisingly well. The non-Redis pure Nginx build on a micro instance did horrible. Like it could maybe handle 30 users in like 1 minute, and then it just crashed after that. And it kept, like the timeout ratio was tremendously, horribly bad. And the only reason why, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
This is using with RDS?
No, this one is not using RDS. RDS is actually faster. RDS is what I've started implementing on my personal site and a number of other sites.
Especially if you put like Elastic Cache in front of it.
Well, you don't need to put, you literally don't need to put anything in front of it anymore. Redis handles all of that. The only reason why I started using the RDS with a micro instance is because a micro instance, memory-wise, will drain out relatively quickly. And what happens when a Linux server like that starts to reduce its memory is it starts to kill processes. Well, guess what? One of the processes that it may kill is MySQL. And so it'll kill your database, and then suddenly after like 500 hits, 1,000 hits, suddenly your database is not working anymore. And you guys have probably maybe seen me joke about that from time to time when I was testing this stuff out on my personal site. Like, oh shit, my site just like shows the database error. That was because the memory was just dying out. So in this case, if you use RDS, RDS is a standalone database server on its own. So it doesn't have to deal with the actual memory management of the micro instance that you're running Redis and you're running WordPress on. So as long as you do that, meaning RDS for the database and micro instance, you can get this even better. Like this is nothing compared to what I was playing around with the 1,000. You guys saw the stuff that I posted with 1,000 users in a minute. I mean that was insane. All of this is to say that this is all beta. Keep that in mind. I'm testing this. I'm testing it on my own stuff. I'm testing it on customers that are willing to test this on. But it's a lot of fun. And if you get a chance to play around with it, I highly recommend it. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you guys out. I've been getting emails left and right from people implementing this and just excited about it and kind of saying, oh man, the reason why I found out about the whole permissions issue is because a couple of people emailed me saying that they were having a permissions issue. I figured out what the problem is. I've already put in a trouble ticket for myself to fix it later on. Yes, I create trouble tickets for myself. But I've been getting a lot of feedback from this because it's exciting to see people seeing this kind of performance from what is essentially a $16 server. And it's technically free for a whole year if you're just running a micro instance with an RDS instance. Boom, done. I highly recommend it. If this is something that you want to play around with, if you're into this, if you're not into server maintenance, if you're not into this kind of development, I'd say stay away from it. But if you want to play around with it, I highly recommend it. Again, this is my first time demoing this in person, and I honestly was worried that something was going to go wrong with the server, but it worked beautifully for me. So, and again, this isn't constant development. I'm continuously changing this. I will eventually migrate everything over to a single cookbook for WP Chef, which will have everything built into it. Currently, the reason why I haven't set up this with multiple cookbooks is I'm going to migrate so that you can run Nginx on port 80, and you can reverse proxy Apache on port 8080. So you have the capability of running both Nginx and Apache if you want. And that gives you all of the fun .ht access that a lot of you guys like to play with on WordPress. So, any questions?
On the Blitz.io account, are you paying anything extra? You use some credits, right?
They give you like 10 credits a month.
Yeah, but that's not much. Do you know how many credits did it take to run that particular? I thought it was a whole lot more than 10.
It's 1 credit per major run. So like I run, like I've probably gone through like 15 credits so far. So, I mean, it depends on how many tests you want to run.
I just thought it was more expensive.
No, it's cheap. It's cheap for what you're doing. It's cheap for the kind of stuff that you're building. Now, keep in mind that some things, a la GoDaddy and others, block this kind of shit. So I'm trying to build my own sort of little Blitz tool in Ruby so I can measure other services that are smart enough to block Blitz and other systems like this. But I want to test this. Like, this is the reason. Like a lot of the stuff that I do, both on the private sector side as well as on my work side, is dealing with massive loads of information and loads of data. And especially, I have a startup that I'm building called Priceless. And the reason why I built WP Chef is I want to show people lots of data in WordPress using stuff like D3 and so forth. And the only way I can do that and handle it successfully is by having tools like this that automate a lot of and speed up a lot of the WordPress capabilities. So if there's no other questions, I will finish here. Oh, no, I have one more thing to show you guys. Sorry. Did you want to?
Just want to let you guys
Yeah.
know I locked up the building,
Okay.
so can't get back in just in case.
Thank you for letting us know. Appreciate
All
it.
right, enjoy tonight. I wish I could have joined you guys tonight.
It's okay.
See you, bosses.
Yes, go ahead.
The blitz.io, it's only useful for front-facing
WordPress sites, not anything that, if you have like software or anything where somebody has to log in,
Yeah,
it wouldn't really.
That's what I'm concerned with. Like the public, if you have millions of users logging into your website and doing login information, the login stuff, then the stuff that and you have nothing to worry about. I mean, it will handle logins. Like in the actual configuration for Redis, or the actual Nginx configuration, I have it set so that it doesn't do Redis caching for anything that falls under WP admin. So all of your administrative panel stuff is all handled through regular Nginx. So that means it won't cache any of the dashboard stuff, it won't cache any of that stuff. But you can do that if you want to. You can modify it so that Redis caches everything. But keep in mind that it's caching per user. So for every user that comes in, that's a bucket of Redis, a hash store being saved for that specific user. So user A won't see what user B looks at when he logs in. It's not that kind of caching. It's state caching. So user A will see what he sees every time he comes into dashboard. User B will see what he sees every time he comes into dashboard. And only if information changes will Redis update and so forth. So it is possible to do login and stuff for WordPress as well. So the other thing I wanted to show you guys real quick is something that I put together in like a week. This was kind of a cool idea. We wanted to kind of put together some sort of WordPress crowdfunding thing. I had this domain for a while and I've just been trying to think of what to do with it. WP Ideas is in beta. The idea here is just voting for ideas that you think are best. And at the end of the month, whatever idea is the top idea, so in this case, like between these two ideas, integration with a photo editor for cropping and resizing images, it kind of explains what that idea is, or save and synchronize existing custom post type formats and data, that would be an awesome plugin. I'm going to click on that one instead. Okay, so that one won that challenge. So I can keep going on and on and on for freaking ever if I want to. And as people vote, you get top ideas and top plugin ideas and so forth. So the top plugin idea so far, it seems, is WP Sync, updating site and database between WordPress environments. Who wants that?
What?
Okay, everybody wants that? All right. So the idea here is, this is a crowdfunding site. So at the end of every month, whatever is the top idea on the site will become a crowdfunding project on the site. And so, depending on who I can get to help me with this one, I think I'm going to reach out to Yarn because I know he's been wanting to do synchronization between WordPress environments, and this is useful for me with WP Chef stuff for sure. I'll reach out to him, and the idea here is it gets funded, say for a month, and then it takes a month or so to build the plugin after that. This is just a great way to get an assistance for a great idea, but most importantly, to have people voting on what ideas are best. I don't know what you guys want. I don't know what you guys use. I only know the plugin as a developer. I only know the plugins that I want. I only know the things that I want to see happen and I want to see get built. I have no idea what you guys are working on or where you guys wish what was actually being built by someone. So the idea here is every idea, every month that is at the top, is basically one of the top, is the top idea, will get crowdfunding. Whether it does well on the crowdfunding side or not, I don't know. And in fact, that's one of the things I do want to do with this is I am going to show failures. If an idea went up for crowdfunding, they didn't do very well, there will be failures listed. Why? What's the reason? Why? Maybe the plugin gets done anyway. Maybe it goes up for $3,000 and it only raises maybe half of that, and the plugin gets built anyhow. That's still a success story. Maybe it fails altogether. Like, why did it fail? What's the reasons for it? That kind of stuff. It'll be interesting for me to kind of play around with it. This is totally hobby for me. I develop for fun. Like, my day job is writing code, but I like to do this kind of stuff at night too. So this is a great way for me to know the kind of things that everybody really wants or really wants to see. And it gives me an opportunity to work on stuff outside of my regular day job, outside of my regular startup project. Just fun stuff to occupy the extra hours of the night that I spend coding. So, everybody like this? Is it kind of cool? Any complaints? Anybody wish it was a little different? No? All right. And then you can also browse all the ideas too. So if you don't know what all the ideas are, I have them all.
So is it gonna know that my IP is voting 1,000 times? Yeah.
And it will block you.
Got it.
Well, it won't block you. It will block you if you vote on the same two ideas at the same time. So the idea here is it makes you choose between two ideas.
Right.
And those two specific ideas, it will only count as one vote. So you can vote as many times as you want, but it'll only count between those two for that specific one vote every time.
Okay, because I was on three computers voting.
Yeah, and it's not like, yeah, exactly. It knows what your IP is. It knows, and it can calculate all that stuff without any issues. It's the best way that I know of algorithmically to basically get to the top what everybody actually wants to see. It's not like, 'cause people generally will say like, okay, I want this plugin and it's a 10, it's a 9, or whatever the case is. But choosing between two forces you to actually pick what you would actually prefer. Again, if anybody else is interested in participating, I'll be reaching out to people that I know might be interested in working on some of these plugins with me, and we'll see how it goes from there. Any questions? Yeah.
Do you log in, or do you?
You can submit an idea. You can register for this if you want to. Once the crowdfunding piece is up and running, you'll be able to log in and check and do all that
If
all
you're
that
coming
good stuff.
back like every couple days,
Yeah.
how do you keep track of what you've already voted on?
You don't have to. That's the beauty of it. It'll just give you two options, and you just pick between those two options which ones you prefer. It's simplified voting from that perspective. You can submit ideas as well. You can submit them by category. You can even upload an image, but I currently pulled all the images out because I had some JavaScript issues that I'll fix later when I get some time. But yeah, it's fun. So by all means, use it, vote on it. The more votes I get, the better the data becomes for me. The more I know what people actually need or want. The more ideas people put up there. Hey, you're not a developer, you don't know how to build this shit, but you think it's something useful. Put your idea up there, submit it as an idea, and if enough people actually like the idea and think that it's valid idea, there are different categories. There's plugin ideas, there's theme ideas, there's event ideas, and there's also talk ideas. The theme ideas is actually kind of cool. I put this one in because I really wanted to do it, but I doubt anybody's actually going to vote for it. I do some Ember.js work, and I'd love to build an Ember.js WordPress theme. We'll see. So, everybody like this? Awesome. That is all I have to share. If you guys are new and haven't joined the Facebook group yet, make sure that you guys go on advancedwp.org. This is the site that thank you WP Engine for hosting for us. And thank you to the guys over at the Facebook Screenwall thing. I forgot the name of the plugin. What the hell is the name of this plugin? I forgot. Anyway, they gave us the free premium version. And basically everything that's on the Facebook group gets automatically loaded to the front page of the site. So people can come in for the first time to kind of view it. There's 1,800 plus members on the Facebook group. There's 130 members on Google+. And there's 140 people signed up on Meetup.com. Feel free to share. Thank you guys for coming. I think it's time for us to get ready to rock on out of here. Make sure to take some pizza.